The great void is very strange. What one imagines becomes reality. Could the whole world be made of consciousness? The prehistoric masters of creation used the grand primordium divine stone to visualize things. Perhaps the entire world's form is a grand primordium divine stone? What are the principles that this world runs by? Qin Mu was stuck in his thoughts. The other people utilized neither thought nor no thought to keep their thoughts in a near-static state to prevent the devils in their hearts from becoming reality. However, by doing so, they lost the ability to think. This was why he didn't learn neither thought nor no thought. He had an incomparable curiosity, and he wanted to find out the truth of the great void. Without the ability to think, it would be hard to find the truth in all of the chaos. Luo Wushuang was still battling the devil in his heart, young Qin Mu, while the god official on the boat planned to drive the boat past them. Luo Wushuang was clearly not a worthy opponent to the devil in his heart, and thus, abandoning Luo Wushuang was the right decision. Qin Mu was still stunned as he thought. The great void could be the grand primordium divine stone universe that the prehistoric masters of creation created. These blank thoughts capture the fears in our hearts, turning them into reality. The fear in one's heart is thus the devil in one's Tao heart. I thought about the prehistoric masters of creation because Shu Jun resides in the heart of my brows. Shu Jun was a great concern of mine, so the great void materialized a master of creation. I am the devil in Luo Wushuang's heart because he lost to me in his early years. Thus, when he asked who was letting their imagination run wild, he unconsciously suspected me, so the devil in his heart materialized. When Qin Mu thought about this, he immediately purified his consciousness, cast away impure thoughts, and stopped thinking about the other celestial venerables. Those celestial venerables were the devils in his heart, especially dangerous weapons like Celestial Venerable Yu, which were the biggest devils in his heart. If one were to think about it, a Celestial Venerable Yu might appear and cause chaos. Then why does the great void only pick up the devils in people's hearts? Why does it only materialize people's fears? Qin Mu fell into deep thought again. For others, the great void was an incomparably dangerous place. For him, however, it was also a place of incomparably large energy. If one could use it and materialize one's divine weapons for combat, or even materialize gods and devils, couldn't one use it to fight back against the celestial heavens? At this moment, Luo Wushuang's growling came from behind, and Qin Mu rapidly went to the back of the boat. He saw that the knife light at the back had become several times stronger as Luo Wushuang's divine knife carved into the sky repeatedly. It cleaved straight towards the devil in his heart, Qin Mu. Luo Wushuang is a genius. In this battle, he broke through his original realm and allowed his blade technique to reach new heights. Yun Chuxiu and Lian Huahun came to accompany him, and Yun Chuxiu praised. His technique of entering the knife path became more powerful than before. The devil in his heart was only stronger than him by a little bit. Now he can defeat him. The knife light was extremely dazzling, akin to a burning sun. After the light exploded, it faded away. Luo Wushuang's imposing body came out of that dissipating light, carrying the head of the devil in his heart, Qin Mu. He caught up to the boat quickly, jumped, and landed on its back. His entire body was covered with blood and injuries, but his aura was stronger than before. Qin Mu slightly frowned, as he could tell that this one-armed man had suffered heavy injuries. Luo Wushuang threw the head of the devil in his heart, Qin Mu, which rolled towards Qin Mu before coming to a stop beside his legs. Qin Mu looked up at Luo Wushuang and saw that he was walking towards him with murderous intent. Suddenly, with a thump, he fell to the ground and fainted. The disciple that he brought with him hurriedly took out medicine to help Luo Wushuang. Suddenly, Yun Chuxiu coldly said, "People who have fainted are the most dangerous. If we kill Luo Wushuang now, we might be safe." That disciple was shocked, and he immediately put down his case and stood up to guard Luo Wushuang, hollering, "Crazy lady, what are you talking about?" The others were stunned as well, and they looked at Yun Chuxiu, failing to understand her. Yun Chuxiu coldly said, "After a person faints, their consciousness becomes chaotic, and they lose control of their Tao heart, thus becoming the most dangerous person. In such a state, one lets their thoughts run wild and lets loose multiple devils, which creates highly unpredictable dangers." At this moment, clattering sounds rang out again. The masses went to look and saw a box appear out of the light of the great void. On that box was Qin Mu, the devil of Luo Wuxuang's heart. Another clattering voice rang out as a second Qin Mu appeared. Then the third and the fourth. Soon more and more Qin Mus appeared. In a short span of time, around 50 boxes appeared out of the great void's light, and on each one of them stood Qin Mu, the devil in Luo Wuxuang's heart. It's too late. Luo Wuxuang imagined Celestial Venerable Mu to be so strong, because he has the title of Overlord Body. Yun Chuxiu sighed and commanded everyone. Everyone, direct your energy towards the boat and leave this place immediately. The boat accelerated and sped towards the depths of the great void's halo. At the back of the boat, 50 Qin Mus rose together and chased the boat. Their sword lights dazzled, reaching the boat before they escaped. Sounds of chi 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 rang through the air as the boat was pierced by those sword lights, creating a massive hole. On the deck, the sword lights weaved through the crowd like dancing fish and dragons. Everyone on the boat was in danger and immediately deployed their divine arts, utilizing their divine weapons to block the sword lights. Suddenly a scream appeared as a god was pierced by a sword. His primordial spirit immediately flew out of his body before being impaled by another sword light. It was chaos on the ship. Qin Mu raised his sword pellet to block the sword lights. The sword skill in Luo Wuxuang's imagination belonged to the past Qin Mu, which looked battered and weak to today's Qin Mu. Yet, he was extremely strong in Luo Wuxuang's imagination. All he could do was find a way to break his sword skills. But colliding with the Qin Mu in Luo Wuxuang's heart caused his vital qi to be dispersed. I'm too strong in Luo Wuxuang's heart. Qin Mu bit his teeth and persevered. Sword pellets flew everywhere as they prevented the sword lights from coming close to the unconscious Luo Wuxuang. The unconscious Luo Wuxuang's consciousness was scattered, and more Qin Mus appeared out of thin air and chased after the boat, making the situation even more desperate. On the other side, Yun Chuxiu and Lian Huahun were also preventing the sword lights from getting close to Luo Wuxuang. Qin Mu's body moved and ended up in front of Luo Wuxuang. The disciple of Luo Wuxuang was loyal to him as well, and he guarded him throughout the ordeal, using his knife light to block the sword lights, preventing them from hurting his master. Qin Mu quickly moved in front of Luo Wuxuang, and his 10 fingers went into action. They poked the body of Luo Wuxuang swiftly, in a manner that resembled a thunderstorm. That disciple was shocked and instinctively cleaved his knife towards him. The knife light only stopped when it was at Qin Mu's head. He realized that Qin Mu wasn't trying to kill Luo Wuxuang and was instead trying to wake him up. After Qin Mu's poking technique, Luo Wuxuang stopped bleeding from his wounds. Yun Chuxiu came quickly and she furiously asked, "Why aren't you killing him?" Qin Mu pretended not to hear her, and his fingers flashed, forming a peculiar mudra. Consciousness morphed into a lotus and, along with his mudra, fell between Luo Wuxuang's eyebrows. Lian Huahun came along too and pushed Qin Mu and Luo Wuxuang with both of her hands. She pushed at them with an incomparably powerful aura. Her blood and essence were incredibly fierce as her divine art burst forth, creating a loud sound. Suddenly, a head grew out of Qin Mu's back. Soon forearms followed. Their palms simultaneously deployed the heaven mudra and collided with the young lady's palm force. Their divine arts collided, and incredible power came out of Lian Huahun's hands. Qin Mu grunted and flipped his body upside down as the other 2 arms continued to deploy the mudra steadily, pushing the consciousness divine art into the heart of Luo Wuxuang's eyebrows. Qin Mu landed and the 4 arms exploded open, crushed by Lian Huahun's divine art. Their bones fractured. Lian Huahun was about to press the attack when Yun Chuxiu blocked her. They stared at each other, each with their own worries. Suddenly, Luo Wuxuang sat up violently. Qin Mu's 4 arms returned to his body, and the head behind him also disappeared. Luo Wuxuang was stunned as he looked at Qin Mu before solemnly thanking him. "Many thanks. You're welcome." Qin Mu smiled. Luo Wuxuang rose and used his knife to cut the sword lights in the air, and the boat immediately accelerated, leaving behind the Qin Mus, who were the devils in his heart. His magic power cultivation was ahead of everyone else's, and he hastened the boat with all of his power, causing it to accelerate rapidly. This time he received a blessing in disguise, growing stronger to defeat the devil in his heart. The current devils were those that had been created when he was unconscious. When he was unconscious, he didn't have a clear understanding of his own power, so the Qin Mus that he spawned weren't very strong. Now that he was awake, if he thought about the devils in his hearts again, they would become even stronger. As long as Qin Mu remained undefeated by him, the Qin Mu in his heart would always remain stronger than him. Only when he defeated Qin Mu would the devil in his heart dissipate. I separate my favors and feuds carefully. You saved me, for which I hereby thank you, but my arm was also cut by your blade. I will still get my revenge for that. Luo Wuxuang saw that those Qin Mus couldn't catch up with the boat and felt relieved. He warned Qin Mu after saying, "To completely rid myself of the devils in my heart, I will still challenge you." Qin Mu smiled and said with a lack of concern, "I'm very interested in the way you use your knife to enter the path. You can challenge me anytime." Luo Wuxuang put away his divine knife and looked back. Those Qin Mus were gone and he whispered, "The Great Void can materialize the devils in people's hearts, which essentially makes it a giant divine creation artifact. Now that we shook them off, will they still exist? Will they exist forever?" Qin Mu's gaze fell on Lian Huahun, who recovered herself and bowed. She apologized with a pleasing voice. "The situation was urgent, and thus I was forced to offend you. I beg for your forgiveness. It was an urgent situation just now. Please don't blame yourself, sister." Qin Mu gently smiled. "Your techniques and divine arts are intricate. Do you mind telling me about your sect?" Lian Huahun replied, "I'm under Celestial Venerable Hao and have cultivated 18 Emperor's Throne techniques, which I merged to form a technique that suits me." Qin Mu was moved. 18 Emperor's Throne techniques? How powerful of you, sister. Yun Chuxiu walked forward and smiled. Merging 18 Emperor's Throne techniques makes it a great celestial heavens technique. You're capable, Sister Lian. You can be considered a young celestial venerable. If you cultivate yourself to the Emperor's Throne realm, you will have 18 celestial palaces, and with such deep cultivation, you will become 10 times stronger than other strong practitioners of the Emperor's Throne. Lian Huahun smiled. You're not bad either, Sister Yun. Which celestial venerable are you under, Sister Yun? Yun Chuxiu held onto Qin Mu's arm and smiled tenderly. Of course, it's Celestial Venerable Mu. I'm personally taught by Celestial Venerable Mu. Qin Mu had a huge problem. Both of the ladies stared at each other whilst trying to read between each other's lines. Both of them wanted to know which celestial venerable they became after reincarnation and were thus probing each other. The 10 celestial venerables appeared to understand each other, but in reality, they knew little about each other. The ancient Celestial Emperor, Celestial Empress, and Mistress Yuanmu were part of the 10 celestial venerables. Exactly who, however, no one knew exactly. These two ladies should have their ****s beaten. Qin Mu thought. The boat went into the deepest part of the Great Void, and not long after, it passed through the halo zone and went into a starry sky where the stars formed a tranquil galaxy. The boat sailed under it, and one could touch those little dust-like stars by raising one's hand. This must be the Great Void? A person asked as he raised his hand to touch one of the stars. Don't touch it. Luo Wuxuang stopped him quickly, saying, That's a divine art that has been materialized. If you touch it, it will explode. The masses were shocked, and they immediately steered the boat away from that galaxy. Qin Mu sized up that galaxy, and his heart fluttered when he thought, This divine art. It's Big Brother Wei Suifeng's divine art. He has been here before? Where has my big brother not been to before? Wait a moment. I thought the Great Void could only materialize the devils in people's hearts. How did Big Brother use the Great Void to materialize his divine art? Wei Suifeng's divine art stretched for a frightening distance, thousands of miles. This wasn't a divine art that Wei Suifeng could deploy with his capabilities. Although his abilities were great, they weren't great enough to do this. If that was the case, then there must be a way to make use of the Great Void to strengthen one's divine arts. And Wei Suifeng had found it. This way might only be viable in the Great Void, for only it had such a pure and masterless consciousness. Maybe Wei Suifeng hid the method within the divine art, using the order and positions of the stars to convey a message. Qin Mu glared at the stars, observed each star's route, and calculated rapidly. Disappointingly, there was no message in Wei Suifeng's divine art, for it was just that. The direction of this galaxy. Qin Mu was stunned. This galaxy resembled an arrow that pointed towards the depths of the Great Void. This divine art was likely Wei Suifeng's way of marking out directions. The boat was following the direction pointed out by the galaxy. It was clear that the celestial heavens knew about the use of Wei Suifeng's divine art as well. Yun Chuxiu saw that he was sizing up the galaxy and smiled. This divine art was left behind by Emperor of Endless Clouds when he was exploring the Great Void. You should know him, he's a powerful person who created a great deal of chaos in the celestial heavens. Qin Mu nodded and said, Emperor of Endless Clouds Wei Suifeng is my brother. In the past 20,000 years, no Emperor's throne realm beings have been born. He's the only one who reached that realm via cultivation. Thus, the celestial heavens valued him highly and appointed him as the great deity of Endless Clouds Palace. He controlled the entire area of the Endless Clouds, which included 256 heavens and thousands of star regions that belonged to the Endless Clouds. Yun Chuxiu continued. However, the celestial heavens later checked his origins and found that he faked both it and his name. He even tampered with Black Deity, son of Heaven Yin's life and death book. Not only did he tamper with the celestial heavens' life and death book, but also that of Yudu Earth Count. He tampered with all 9 of the life and death books. How daring! Qin Mu laughed. My brother is indeed daring to the point of recklessness. As long as the celestial heavens wants to discover a person's origin, it can do so regardless of the person. Yet, he put so much effort into faking it. He once went to Son of Heaven Yin to become his disciple for a few hundred years. Son of Heaven Yin valued him highly, and he became his proudest disciple and was tasked with great responsibilities. Later on, he faked his death to escape, which made Son of Heaven Yin sad for quite some time. Yun Chuxiu continued. When the celestial heavens continued their investigation, they made another startling discovery. Not only had he gone to Mingdu, but he also went to the sects of Red Deity, White Deity, and Green Deity. He even went to the sects of several celestial venerables, and that of Heaven Duke to become a brother of Great Sun Sovereign. Every time his name and face changed. He never used his true name or face and snuck around for a few hundred years by faking his death. Qin Mu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He did know that Wei Suifeng once snuck into Mingdu and left behind a topographic map of Mingdu's great prison. Saint Woodcutter used this map to sneak into Mingdu and rescue Diyue. The celestial heavens felt that he was someone worth grooming and wanted to give him great responsibilities as long as he hadn't committed any great evils. Thus, they checked his origins and finally found out that he came from the ruins of the founding emperor era and that he was one of its immigrants. The celestial heavens was thus scared of him. Yun Chuxiu continued. Then those immigrants numbered tens of millions, and their skills and divine arts could no longer be inherited because they were broken. Even their divine bridges were broken. They were abandoned people of the gods and had no future. Yet, it was from this mud pit of a state that someone at the emperor's throne level emerged. The celestial heavens was shocked and felt that it was serious. Thus, they arrested and suppressed him. However, he was a capable man who did a lot for the celestial heavens, such as the exploration of the Great Void in which he explored the deepest. In front of the boat, another galaxy appeared to guide them. He went further than even celestial venerables and left behind these galaxies, and some void fortresses to help us discover our position in the Great Void. Yun Chuxiu admirably said, Celestial Venerable Mu, you two are geniuses. Qin Mu shook his head and said, Big Brother is indeed a genius. I, however, am not. Hypocrites. Although he caused a huge ruckus and was discovered, arrested, and suppressed by the celestial heavens, he still did no harm to the celestial heavens. Yun Chuxiu smiled and said, You're different. You entered the celestial heavens openly and caused it to fracture. Even the 10 celestial venerables are split apart by you. The peace in the celestial heavens won't last long. Even so, the celestial heavens can't touch you, while you have so many people swearing to protect you. This is where you are smarter than him. Your brother's way of doing things pales in comparison to yours. Qin Mu smiled. The boat continued, and after a long while, real stars suddenly appeared in front of them. Those should be the stars created by masters of creation. Within those stars, 5 of them were connected by chains, and in the center of the chains was a giant fortress that mimicked a giant war machine. Around the fortress, fresh blood and corpses floated about, suggesting that the area had experienced many conflicts. From the fortress, gods appeared to verify the identity of those on the boat and to invite them inside for some rest. Because of the battle caused by Luo Wushuang's heart devils, many on the boat had died. Out of the 300, only 260 people were left, with a lot of them being injured. Qin Mu entered the fortress and looked down, noticing that the gods and devils that were stationed there had numb expressions. On their bodies, there were scars created by healed injuries, which were akin to red centipedes crawling on their skin. These gods and devils usually had 3 heads and 6 arms and were holding various weapons. However, they seemed to lack emotions and had soulless eyes. What happened to them? He wondered. They have lost their emotions and feelings. Yun Chuxiu smiled. They are prisoners of the celestial heavens who had their feelings taken away from them. All that's left of them is their fighting capabilities. When the celestial heavens discovered the Great Void, they suffered great casualties. So they thought about recycling trash and sent prisoners here to guard the void fortresses, so that the celestial heavens could set up a foothold. Since they lack any feelings and are a bunch of walking meatbags, they don't spawn heart devils. Qin Mu looked at these gods and devils and asked, "Are they people from the Crimson Light era?" Yun Chuxiu called on a Taoist and said, "This is Celestial Venerable Mu, who is here for Celestial Venerable Hua and Celestial Venerable Su. Please fetch that big guy from the Void Fortress." That Taoist should still have his emotions and feelings. He was still clear-headed and was in charge of the fortress safety and controlling the prisoners from the Crimson Light era. The Taoist looked at Qin Mu and wondered why his cultivation was so low. Nevertheless, he paid his respects and said, "Please wait, Celestial Venerable." He shouted, and within that shout, there was a marvelous rhythm. It should be a Tao sound used to control the precious artifacts. Suddenly, violent vibrations came from outside the Void Fortress. Qin Mu looked towards the sound and saw a god larger than the fortress itself stand up and raise its head, which left him dumbstruck. That large god had 3 heads and 6 arms. He was expressionless and looked in 3 different directions with his 3 heads. Around him was a god-riding chain, which was materialized by his vital qi. The chain shone with wavering rune lights that rotated around his large body. The runes crisscrossed, and soon, the area they covered grew to encompass the entire Void Fortress. This was a strong practitioner of the Emperor's throne. His cultivation reached the peak of the Emperor's throne realm. Qin Mu looked at the rune lights on those chains and found them familiar. It was as if they were the runes of the Anisrava creation mysterious scripture. He couldn't help but ask, "Who is he? Is he a great deity from the Crimson Light era?" Yun Chuxiu laughed heartily. "Yes." Qin Mu's heart shuddered, and he shook his head. "It can't be Light Emperor. He died in the ruins of the battlefield outside of the celestial heavens. Qijui told us that we passed through the Light Emperor battlefield on our way to the celestial heavens." Yun Chuxiu smiled. Obviously, it can't be him. He was the being with the strongest corporeal body in history, and he almost killed his way to the celestial heavens. Then, countless armies of gods and devils surrounded him and hacked his head innumerable times. However, every time it was cut off, another one grew. He wouldn't die. Even a celestial venerable had a hard time trying to refine him to death. The ruins of the battlefield you passed by were littered with countless bodies of Light Emperor and other gods and devils. Dozens of strong practitioners of the Emperor's throne realm also died on the celestial heavens side. It was unusually brutal. Qin Mu looked up at that huge god behind the Void Fortress. It was too powerful and funneled the surrounding space into him. "Aren't you lacking some knowledge?" Grand Emperor Zhu Yushir was the one who had the strongest corporeal body. Shu Jun's voice rang in his head. "Outside of Light Emperor, is there anyone else with such a strong corporeal body?" Qin Mu inquired towards Yun Chuxiu. "Light Emperor is dead." Yun Chuxiu smiled. He died a brutal death. His corporeal body might have been the strongest in history, but he didn't cultivate his primordial spirit to achieve 3 heads and 6 arms. His weakness was found, and he was killed by Son of Heaven Yin. Qin Mu's heart trembled. It was obvious that Light Emperor couldn't cultivate his primordial spirit with the Anisrava creation mysterious scripture. His technique lacked the way to cultivate 3 heads and 6 arms and had large flaws. If it was used with Crimson Emperor's 3 primordial spirit undying God consciousness, it would have been perfect. Of course, that was in the past. Now, paths, skills, and divine arts had improved, and the 10 celestial venerables of the celestial heavens had already entered the celestial heavens realm. One couldn't combine two Emperor's Throne techniques in a way that could be unrivaled today. Is this huge Emperor's Throne God Light Emperor? Qin Mu had some doubts. Crimson Emperor's undying God consciousness ensured that his consciousness couldn't be eradicated. Thus, could the Anusrava creation mysterious scripture of Light Emperor ensure that his corporeal body could never die or be annihilated? It could be that only the soul of Light Emperor died during his death, while his body lived on. Could this giant god be the corporeal body of Light Emperor? In the Void Fortress, they rested for a while under the protection of the giant god's runes, which shielded them from the peculiar consciousness of the Great Void. They could relax and not worry about the Great Void materializing the devils in their hearts. After recovering from their injuries, the boat set sail again, following the Emperor of Endless Clouds, Wei Suifeng's galaxy divine art into the depths of the Great Void. Qin Mu looked back and saw that the Void Emperor was infested with blood rust as if it had been taken out of blood. What attacked the fortress and caused it to be surrounded by bodies? It was a good thing that they didn't see any attacks from the monsters of the Great Void due to the shortness of their time there. Qin Mu's gaze fell onto that giant god's body again as he thought, who exactly is he? If I summoned his soul, would he survive it? A few days later, they reached the second Void Fortress, which had been pulverized. A terrifying force of the Great Void had destroyed the fortress. Luo Wushuang frowned and stopped the boat as he searched the ruins himself. He returned not long after, shook his head and said, "No bodies." The bodies of the guards disappeared. Qin Mu solemnly said, "Then let's continue." The boat set sail again, and the Emperor of Endless Clouds, Wei Suifeng's divine art was still there to direct them. The masses on the boat felt that the Buddhist technique, neither thought nor no thought, could defend them from the peculiarities of the Great Void. Outside of the boat, a giant eyeball suddenly appeared and rolled in its socket before disappearing. Whose devil is that? Luo Wushuang pulled out his knife in alarm. At this moment, a giant body appeared outside the boat. It was slimy and swam beside the boat, causing the boat to make a screeching noise. Luo Wushuang hurriedly went outside of the boat, and that long torso gradually dispersed into thin air. He hesitated, then suddenly, a giant rough tentacle lifted the boat. Luo Wushuang was going to cleave at it, but it grew fainter and eventually disappeared. Qin Mu crawled to the side of the boat as he looked around, yelling, "Divine knife Luo, some people here can't suppress their heart devils even when cultivating neither thought nor no thought, causing peculiarities to occur." Yun Chuxiu came up beside him and whispered, "Kill the people who can't suppress the devils in their hearts, or we'll be in danger." Qin Mu glanced at her and suddenly, an imposing god appeared beside the boat. It was covered in divine light, and thousands of deafening Dao sounds echoed out. That was the ancient celestial emperor. Qin Mu coldly said, "Empress, you can't suppress the devil in your heart either. Should we eliminate you too?" As soon as he finished, he saw the figures of the 10 celestial venerables appear around the boat suddenly, surrounding it. Amongst these 10 celestial venerables, one could only make out Celestial Venerable Hao, Celestial Venerable Hua, and Ancestral God King. The others' faces were shrouded in fog. The devils in his heart appeared too. The 10 celestial venerables gradually dissipated as well, returning to nothingness with the ancient celestial emperor. Luo Wushuang returned to the boat and was stunned at the running box outside the boat. On the box was the devil in his heart, Qin Mu. Cold sweat broke out on Qin Mu's forehead as the Great Void's illusions grew stronger and stronger. Sooner or later, they would become reality and exterminate them. At that point, they saw rows of large bodies walking in the galaxy above the boat. "It's the walking corpses." Cheers came from inside the boat as the masses went wild with joy. The walking corpses appeared. "We're saved." Qin Mu was dumbfounded. What were the walking corpses? "My people." The voice of Shu Jun, the master of creation, suddenly appeared in his head as he said in a trembling manner, "How did they die here? The corpses of the masters of creation from prehistory?" Qin Mu raised his head to take a look. Those gigantic corpses were walking on the galaxy as though they were walking on water. Every time their feet land, it created many strange-looking ripples. This galaxy was the divine art of Wei Suifeng, and just a slight touch would cause its power to explode. Strangely, these walking corpses of the masters of creation could walk on its surface without touching it. Even more bizarre, this group of walking corpses was traversing the Great Void. The Great Void was vast and empty. However, these giant corpses were traveling through it, as though they were ascetic monks, and walking through the void was part of their cultivation training. Also, they were a group of corpses without life force. What's the origin of these walking corpses? Qin Mu asked Yun Chuxiu, who was beside him. Yun Chuxiu shook her head and said, "I don't know. This is what the Emperor of Endless Clouds discovered when he was exploring the Great Void. These corpses love to lumber along in the Great Void, paying no attention to others. The Emperor of Endless Clouds realized that they have no souls and have been dead for more than 10,000 years. The strange but marvelous thing is, one feels a sense of peace when walking beside them, making the Great Void unable to influence the devil in your heart. If you're able to run into them, you'll be safe for the rest of your journey." As these walking corpses walked above the galaxy, the ship followed below them. With these walking corpses around, the devils in their hearts were not stirred, and strange apparitions didn't appear. Suddenly, Qin Mu flew off the ship. He circled the galaxy and arrived on its surface, carefully examining these walking corpses. "Celestial Venerable Mu, what are you doing?" Everybody on the ship got a fright, and their scalps went numb. Yun Chuxiu shouted, "These walking corpses are our guardians. Don't do anything hasty." Lian Huahuan's eyes flickered as she gently said, "Celestial Venerable Mu is so reckless. We would be safer if we got rid of him. What do you think?" Luo Wushuang frowned slightly and looked at the rest. Many on the ship were nodding their heads, agreeing to put Celestial Venerable Mu to death. Celestial Venerable Mu doesn't seem to realize that there are many people on the ship that want to kill him. Luo Wushuang felt that it was all very absurd. Qin Mu was, in name, the expedition leader, leading them to rendezvous with Celestial Venerable Hua and Celestial Venerable Su. He didn't expect that almost everybody on this ship wanted to get rid of him. Even Luo Wushuang himself had a grudge with Qin Mu over his severed arm. It seems that this trip to the Great Void wasn't for exploration but to specifically get rid of Qin Mu, this little fellow. Luo Wushuang thought to himself. Qin Mu ignored the cheers of the people on the ship and continued to observe these walking corpses. They were indeed the masters of creation from prehistory. The hearts of their brows were embedded with grand primordium divine stones. However, as they had been dead for a long time, he couldn't feel their pulses or breath. These masters of creation were coincidentally heading in the same direction Wei Suifeng's galaxy was pointing. Qin Mu flew to the side of one of the walking corpses. He circled around the giant, trying to determine the cause of death for these masters of creation. Strangely, there were no wounds on these masters of creation. Also, their clothes were fresh and new. Qin Mu muttered to himself as his sword pellet transformed into a flying sword, which cut off a corner of a walking corpse's clothes. Weirdly, the clothes regenerated. The clothes were able to regenerate because these corpses used their grand primordium divine stones and consciousnesses to create them. Although they're dead, their consciousnesses survived and are maintained in the same condition as when they were alive. Even though they're dead, their consciousnesses are still circulating. Even if they're injured, they'll be healed by their consciousnesses. Qin Mu was trying to think of the reason these walking corpses were fixated on heading in a particular direction. However, he had no way of finding out. Xu Jun's voice came through saying, "Let me communicate with their consciousnesses and find out what they went through when they were alive. They don't even have souls. Is it possible to communicate?" Qin Mu was shocked. For masters of creation, this is natural. Not to mention communication after death. As long as one's consciousness is strong enough, they can gain the knowledge of generations of dead masters of creation from the void, gathering together their wisdom. Xu Jun said, "Tiny life forms like you need to learn in order to master the knowledge that your ancestors passed down. For masters of creation, a newborn could gain our entire knowledge through a mere touch on the forehead from a senior. This is how vulgar and primitive you people are." Qin Mu asked puzzledly, "If you don't learn but absorb directly instead, how do you correct anything that may be wrong?" Xu Jun was stunned. Correct anything that may be wrong? There's nothing wrong in the knowledge of our ancestors. Why do we need to correct them? Qin Mu shook his head. The way to improve paths, skills, and divine arts was to have a questioning mind when learning and to spot the errors of prior generations. When knowledge was being imbued into a child's head, that would become his truth, which they would take for granted without questioning it. In this manner, there was no chance to discover mistakes in the ancestral knowledge that was being passed down. All types of reform started with the foundation. The reform of eternal peace started with the foundations of sword skills, knives, and runes before moving on to change the foundations of realms, divine treasures, and even the foundation of people's everyday necessities. And to break the God in one's heart, that was the foundation of the state of mind. If one's entire knowledge was being imbued directly, how could one seek to change its foundation? The methods of learning of the masters of creation may have been faster, but it was easy to cause stagnation in the paths, skills, and divine arts, resulting in the stifling of knowledge. Qin Mu opened the heart of his brows. He immediately felt Shu Jun's consciousness surging forth from the grand primordium origin stone, his powerful consciousness touching the consciousnesses of these corpses. Qin Mu followed Shu Jun's consciousness. A vast world suddenly appeared in front of his eyes, consisting of boundless seas, huge mountains, waterfalls, and white clouds. These gigantic masters of creation walked among the tall mountains and steep hills, and traversed the jade-colored Great Sea. Some of these giants thought of wings and flew among the blue skies. Some giants visualized colorful plants of all sorts, lush forests ceaselessly materializing from their imaginations into reality. Some of these powerful masters of creation flew among the starry sky, gathering together to create the sun, moon, and stars. This was the new world they created, away from the conflict. They lived a free and unrestrained life. Their clothing was simple and plain, without any extravagant ornaments. From the consciousnesses of these walking corpses, Qin Mu was able to sense that the world they were originally from was already unlivable. Apart from them fighting and killing each other, powerful ancient gods were also trying to exterminate them. They visualized and created a new world, one that had nothing, requiring them to develop it and make it perfect. Suddenly, a humongous figure descended into the world they visualized. A terrifying wave of consciousness rippled and swept across the void, causing it to crumble. As the world created by these masters of creation through visualization wasn't yet stable, the arrival of this figure caused the crumbling world to disintegrate into pure consciousness, which surged backward into the minds of these masters of creation. Qin Mu watched this scene in a daze. What was originally a beautiful world had become a death-filled scene of carnage. These masters of creation raised their heads to look at the sky, their mouths unable to make any sound. The consciousness seemed as though it had taken on a physical form. It burrowed into the hearts of their brows, destroying their brains and shattering their souls, turning them into corpses. This was the last thing these walking corpses saw. The images in front of Qin Mu disappeared without a trace as Shu Jun retracted his consciousness. On the grand primordium origin stone's sacrificial altar, Shu Jun's empty head was panting heavily. Because he didn't have a tongue, teeth, or corporeal body, it looked weird. Air was sucked through his mouth and exited through the bottom of his head. Qin Mu was also breathing heavily, his forehead covered with cold sweat. Shu Jun, did you see that majestic figure? Qin Mu composed himself and asked. That person was able to enter the great void. He must be one of the masters of creation, so why did he want to destroy the great void? Shu Jun shook his head, his consciousness unstable. I didn't manage to see who it was. Qin Mu blinked his eyes. Since he was borrowing Shu Jun's consciousness, he was unable to see everything completely. It was likely that Shu Jun had seen who the figure was but was unwilling to divulge it. Shu Jun were both like ants on a rope, in the same boat facing the same enemy. If you saw anything, please tell me. He was slowly swaying him. Shu Jun gave a cold humph. In the same boat? You have a broken boat. Everywhere there are people trying to kill you. You better think of how to deal with the difficult encounter that's in front of you at the moment. Qin Mu gave a faint smile. Clearly, he knew that most of the people on the ship below wanted to kill him. Meeting up with Celestial Venerable Hua and Celestial Venerable Su was just an excuse created by the Celestial Venerables of the celestial heavens. In reality, they wanted to send him out to the Great Void and find a chance to get rid of him. Needless to say, even if they were unable to kill him, he would be banished to the Great Void forever. Anyway, there were no important figures on the ship. Celestial Venerable Mu, return to the ship quickly, Lian Huahan said gently. These walking corpses are extremely peculiar. A Celestial Venerable shouldn't place himself in danger. Celestial Venerable, it's safer to return to the ship. Qin Mu stood on the shoulder of one of the walking corpses. His clothes fluttered in the air as he said, Sister Lian, I'm admiring the view here. Please don't disturb me. On the ship, Xiao Yufang, who was under Celestial Venerable Hao, smiled tenderly and said, Celestial Venerable, what's good to see over there? We have a better view here. Qin Mu ignored them. A thread of vital qi burst forth, flying towards the galaxy that was below the walking corpses. The people on the ship stared at him with burning hatred as they shouted, Crook Mu, stop it! Qin Mu brat, you dare! Celestial Venerable Mu, please don't. This galaxy was a strange phenomenon formed by the divine art of Emperor of Endless Clouds, Wei Suifeng. If triggered by Qin Mu, everyone on the ship, including strong practitioners such as Luo Wushuang, would be destroyed by the power of this divine art. Qin Mu tried to rouse the vital qi he sent into the galaxy. What puzzled him was that Wei Suifeng's divine art didn't explode. He scratched his head and channeled more vital qi, but Wei Suifeng's divine art remained like a calm river flowing through the void. Xu Jun was delighted at his misfortune. Little brat, you have miscalculated. Although these masters of creation are dead, their consciousnesses remain. It may just be consciousness, but it's able to subdue this divine art. Qin Mu retracted his vital qi and said resentfully, Why didn't you mention this earlier? Xu Jun gave a cold hump and said proudly, Had you restored my corporeal body earlier, I could have easily crushed these tiny worms. However, I can still protect your life, as long as you supply me with 3 years of consciousness, qi, and blood. Upon seeing that Wei Suifeng's divine art wasn't triggered by Qin Mu, the fear of the gods and devils on the ship turned into pluck. Pan Chunjing rose and flew towards the top of the galaxy, shouting, Everyone, there's no need to wait any longer. Now that we're here, he can't escape back to the celestial heavens. Let's kill him and complete our mission. That's right. Everyone on the ship flew up, one after another. They shouted, The deeper we venture into the great void, the lower our chances of returning safely to the celestial heavens. Let's take the opportunity to kill old Crook Mu so that we can still go back. Qin Mu laughed heartily as he launched himself into the air off the walking corpse. He landed on the shoulder of another corpse before flying off again. Behind him, the crowd charged with their attacks, each releasing their auras. Qin Mu turned his head to take a look and saw that there were no divine arts practitioners among them. Most of them were gods. Celestial palaces materialized behind them, some even managing to materialize multiple celestial palaces. There were about 20 people on the ship who didn't fly up. Instead, they stared at each other, speechless. Yun Chuxiu took a few glances at Luo Wushuang and asked curiously, There's a deep feud between Divine Knife Luo and Overlord Body Qin. Why did you not attack? Luo Wushuang plainly said, If I decide to make a move, I won't do it through the actions of others. I want a fair fight, defeating him by my own knife. Why did you not attack? Yun Chuxiu's gaze landed on Lian Huahan, who was beside her, and then she chuckled. I don't want to kill him, why should I attack? Am I right, younger sister Lian? Lian Huahan was expressionless and coldly said, Wretch, you should refer to me as elder sister. If Qin Mu was on the ship, he would definitely have been so alarmed to hear this line that he would jump up in fright. He had guessed that Yun Chuxiu was Celestial Empress all along, and there were also various signs to indicate his guess was right and that Celestial Empress was the instigator who had schemed to kill her own sister, Mistress Yuanmu, and then possessed her corporeal body before returning to the celestial heavens. Celestial Empress had then transformed into Ju Wuchen to seduce Celestial Emperor into reincarnating before she assassinated him. After Celestial Venerable Ling killed her, she took the opportunity to reincarnate as well, infiltrating the Heaven Alliance and becoming one of the Celestial Venerables. He also guessed that Lian Huahan was the reincarnation of Mistress Yuanmu, even going as far as suspecting that Mistress Yuanmu didn't die completely and had also infiltrated the Heaven Alliance, becoming one of the 10 Celestial Venerables as well. The reason he made such conjectures and was deeply convinced by it was that Yun Chuxiu knew of the fact that he had previously tried to summon the soul of Celestial Empress on the ghost ship. However, Lian Huahan saying, refer to me as elder sister, had completely flipped his conjecture upside down. It was a pity that Qin Mu wasn't on the ship. What was even more of a pity was that Luo Wushuang wasn't aware of the origins of these two ladies, and he was also utterly uninterested in their sibling feud, and thus merely looked up above the galaxy. On the galaxy, Qin Mu and the others were moving as fast as flowing light as the gods pursued him from behind to kill him. If Overlord Body Qin leaves the area protected by the walking corpses, it will trigger the devil within his heart. Why is he being so reckless and so intent on angering these strong practitioners on the ship? Luo Wushuang followed the direction of the galaxy and looked ahead. Suddenly, he felt a jolt in his heart. He saw that in the darkness of the void, there was a boundless land at the edge of the galaxy. The land of the Great Void. So that's it. He saw the land of the Great Void. Two rays of knife lights shot out of Luo Wushuang's eyes and crisscrossed through the air with clanging noises that alarmed the people on the ship. He yelled out, "Immediately redirect the ship and head towards the land of the Great Void." The remaining 20 to 30 people on the ship hurriedly steered the ship and increased its speed. Yun Chuxiu and Lian Huahun also looked away from each other to help move the ship. The land of the Great Void was a piece of floating land within the Great Void that the Emperor of Endless Clouds, Wei Suifeng, had discovered. There were no strange and unpredictable heart devils. This time around, Celestial Venerable Hua and Celestial Venerable Su had led their many disciples to travel about the Great Void with the intention of uncovering the secret of the land of the Great Void, and to search for the traces of Carefree Village and Founding Emperor. The ship immediately picked up speed and chased after Qin Mu and the others. Luo Wushuang even personally activated his vital qi to increase the speed of the ship to its maximum. Very soon, the ship had caught up with the group that was pursuing Qin Mu. Luo Wushuang yelled out, "We have reached the land of the Great Void, return to the ship." Countless rays of light spun about and fell from the top of the galaxy, landing one by one on the ship. Everyone was filled with a murderous aura as they looked towards Qin Mu, who was ahead running atop the celestial river. They each prepared their divine arts and activated their divine weapons, waiting for the moment when they caught up with Qin Mu to kill him from across the celestial river. At this very moment, Luo Wushuang suddenly felt cold sweat forming on his forehead as he said in a hoarse voice, "There are no more walking corpses ahead. Stop the ship! Stop the ship quickly!" At the same time, Qin Mu had leaped up from the shoulder of the last walking corpse. During the split second that he leaped into the air, countless teleportation runes surrounding his body lit up and revolved around him noisily as they enveloped him and vanished with him. Celestial Venerable Mu is really slippery. Yun Chuxiu clasped her palms together and praised. The ship was gradually slowing down, yet due to its momentum, it still flew past the body of the last walking corpse, continuing to dash forwards for another 100 miles. Everyone on the ship couldn't help but grow fearful, and their various heart devils emerged one by one. Luo Wushuang shook his head and cried out, "Don't stop, activate the ship with all your might, and rush into the land of the Great Void before your heart devils materialize." Just as he finished his sentence, he heard a tapping noise. Luo Wushuang felt cold sweat on his forehead, and he turned around to look. Behind the ship, a Qin Mu standing atop a chest appeared and looked towards him with an awe-inspiring gaze. The chest started to run at top speed, pursuing the ship. At the same time, the space outside the ship started to shake, and a massive eyeball squeezed its way out of the void with a cruel and vicious gaze. It wasn't known whose heart devil this eyeball was. The massive eyeball suddenly split into top and bottom, and the eyeball was actually filled with razor-sharp teeth. It opened its big mouth and came biting towards the ship. At that instant, all sorts of monsters started to emerge from the void. There were vicious dragons longer than the ship, monsters with tentacles that hid beneath the ship, massive spiders with numerous eyes on their backs, a headless bride, and even ancient gods that were engulfed in fiery flames. In addition, there weren't only monsters, even the figure of the ancient celestial emperor had emerged from the void. There were also celestial venerables. It wasn't known which of these disciples had their own masters as the devils within their hearts. "We've fallen into his trap." Luo Wushuang let out a sigh in his heart. He pulled out his knife and cleaved it down towards that massive eyeball as he thought to himself, "The reason Overlord Body Qin started to run off before he reached the land of the Great Void was to make us chase after him. Then, He would make use of the teleportation divine art to teleport to the land of the Great Void a step ahead of us. As for us, when we left the area protected by the aura of the walking corpses in pursuit of him, we would be killed by the devils within our hearts. This brat, he's truly ruthless. A god official on the ship cried out shrilly. There's no need to utilize neither thought nor no thought anymore. Concentrate all magic power and dash towards the land of the Great Void. He had only just finished his sentence when a flying dragon with wings pounced down and grabbed him, dragging him into the void. A scream could be heard from the void. Countless monsters surged out of the void and pounced onto that god official, and very soon he was dead. Luo Wuxuang killed the massive eyeball monster, and immediately continued to activate the ship with all his might. Everyone on the ship gave their all to increase the speed of the ship to its maximum. There were flickering shadows about the ship. Even though this ship was a top-notch divine weapon, it had already started to break apart noisily from the stress of traveling at such a high speed. Deck boards were bursting apart one by one, and rivets were loosening and flying off the ship at great speeds. The hull of the ship was shaking from side to side, and it threatened to fall apart at any moment. Luo Wuxuang snuck a glance and saw that the imposing celestial emperor in the void was turning his head around slowly to look towards the ship. He felt a chill in his heart. The body of this celestial emperor was really too massive. Although the speed of the ship was extremely fast, in front of this colossal thing it seemed so insignificant. The ship was like a teeny tiny bug that was flying by the ancient celestial emperor slowly, brushing past his nostrils. Fortunately, even with the Great Void forming the Heart Devil Celestial Emperor, it would take some time before he materialized completely. This would give them the chance to escape to the land of the Great Void. However, although the ancient Celestial Emperor was forming fairly slowly, the formation of the other Heart Devils was shockingly fast. The devils within the hearts of the people on board the ship grew steadily, and there were endless monsters that emerged by the speeding ship, which pounced towards it. Thump! A monster with 6 limbs and 2 wings, which resembled a fusion of a wolf and a tiger, leaped onto the deck. Opening its wide mouth, it swallowed a god whole. Luo Wuxuang pounced forward with knife rays shining and killed the monster. However, beneath the ship, there were countless tentacles flying about that were clinging onto the ship and slowing its speed. Luo Wuxuang shook his knife, and the blade rays split into 2, then into 4, and finally into 8. In a short period, his blade rays flowed downwards from midair, resembling a waterfall, and they moved along the deck and the side of the ship. The blade rays avoided the people on the ship, and in the blink of an eye, they cleansed the entire ship, tearing the monsters at the bottom of the ship into 1,000 pieces. Luo Wuxuang was, after all, a great expert of the numinous sky realm who had entered the path with his knife and had exceptional abilities. Even though there were many monsters that had leaped onto the ship, he was still able to guarantee the safety of everyone on board. At this very moment, a giant wheel of light appeared ahead. The incomparably intense bright light was incredibly eye-catching, and following it, a head slowly rose up. Celestial Venerable Hong! Luo Wuxuang sucked in a cold breath. The Celestial Venerable that was gradually rising upwards was Celestial Venerable Hong, one of the 10 Celestial Venerables of the Celestial Heavens. Although Celestial Venerable Hong was still an apparition, the wheel of light at the back of his head had already been formed completely. He raised his palm and grabbed in the direction of the ship. Are you raising your knife to a Celestial Venerable? Luo Wuxuang's face turned ashen. He didn't know whose heart devil this Celestial Venerable Hong was, but he was also the devil in his heart. He dared not raise his knife to a Celestial Venerable. It's a Celestial Venerable, a sovereign of the celestial heavens. Even if it was just an apparition, even if it was merely a devil within one's heart that was created by the Great Void, he still dared not attack a Celestial Venerable. The Celestial Venerable represented the supreme heavenly might, represented the most formidable battle powers of the celestial heavens. Just thinking of raising his knife against a Celestial Venerable was a great sin alone, much less actually doing it. However, Luo Wuxuang raised his knife with his only arm, leaping up into the sky with a decisive look in his eyes as he roared fiercely. I dare to beat up even Celestial Venerable Mu, much less Celestial Venerable Hong. Let me destroy the god within my heart. Behind him, his celestial palaces flew out with a buzz. and his primordial spirit stood in the numinous sky hall of the celestial palace. He pulled out his knife at the same time and sliced down at the apparition of celestial venerable Hong. As he sliced down with the knife, Luo Wuxuang could only feel a sense of heroism gushing out from within his chest. All along, his knife skills had been skillfully calculated and prim and proper, achieving the samadhi state of precision. However, despite being exquisite, they had lacked a sense of heroism. Yet, at this moment he was actually stepping outside of the boundaries of precision. The knife flash hit celestial venerable Hong's large hand and sliced apart the palm of this apparition. Then the extremely brilliant ray of knife light landed on celestial venerable Hong's face, slicing deeply into his skull. Piak! A crisp sound rang out, and the knife in Luo Wuxuang's hand exploded. Even though he was merely an apparition, the power of this celestial venerable Hong was still incredibly great and beyond comprehension. He had disintegrated the divine knife that had accompanied Luo Wuxuang throughout his life. Luo Wuxuang was struck by the blow to the point that he spat out blood and stumbled backward. Behind him, the ship was rushing in his direction, and his body crashed onto the ship and slid a few hundred yards. The ship passed through the halo at the back of the head of this celestial venerable Hong apparition and flew away. Up ahead was the land of the Great Void. The apparition of celestial venerable Hong slowly turned around, and behind him, the palm of the apparition of the ancient celestial emperor was heading towards the ship. The ship rushed into the land of the Great Void with a whoosh, and at this same instant, the palm of the ancient celestial emperor had also reached the land of the Great Void. Everyone's hearts were filled with fear and shock, as they looked at the approaching palm of celestial emperor in a daze and with helplessness. They watched as this enormous palm reached the atmosphere of the land of the Great Void, and immediately, the palm started to burn and was reduced to black ashes that scattered about in an instant. Evidently, this piece of land in the Great Void was protected by some strange power that stopped it from getting invaded by the monsters outside. However, the power of this palm still caused a terrifying aftermath. Even though it hadn't reached the ship still shattered into pieces, and the divine would burst apart. The people on the ship seemed to have suffered a huge blow and were all spitting out blood. Those with weaker abilities were crushed into bits directly, their corporeal bodies exploding in midair. Even their primordial spirits turned into dust. It wasn't clear whose heart devil the ancient celestial emperor was. Despite the fact that he had yet to materialize completely or that the palm had been destroyed on its own when it reached the land of the Great Void, the aftereffects still almost completely wiped them out. Luo Wuxuang went all out to defend against this blow, taking the brunt of the attack. Because of this, countless wounds burst open all over his body, and fresh blood spewed out as he fell from midair. He wasn't able to protect the disciples of the various celestial venerables and big shots of the celestial heavens on the ship. At least half of the gods perished under the aftereffects of the blow. Luo Wuxuang felt his heart turn cold, and an insuppressible sorrow surged into his heart. Although their mission was led by Qin Mu, the one who was responsible for the safety of the disciples of the celestial venerables and big shots was him. Now that so many had died, he wouldn't be able to be absolved from blame. Even if he was able to leave the Great Void alive, when he returned to the celestial heavens, he would still be unable to escape the punishment of death. He was completely disheartened and simply allowed his body to drop freely from the sky. As he fell, he saw the grand and magnificent mountains beneath him, which were a lot bigger than the regular mountains and were even more elegant and tall. The river below was also wider, and the waterfall looked as though it fell from the skies as it flowed downwards for over 100 miles. White clouds drifted leisurely, and they were as dense as the sea. His figure fell through the skies, and as he streaked past a tall mountain, he saw the flying waterfall that descended from the skies like the Milky Way. He saw Qin Mu standing at the highest point of the flying waterfall, raising his head to watch as the more than 100 figures engulfed in flames and thick smoke came crashing down from the destroyed ship, scattering all across the land of the Great Void. Qin Mu retracted his gaze. Seemingly noticing Luo Wuxuang, he gave him a small smile. This devilish brat. Luo Wuxuang was enraged as he crashed into the deep pool at the bottom of the waterfall with a loud noise. At the highest point of the waterfall, Qin Mu unrolled a scroll containing a topographic map and inspected it carefully before he looked around his surroundings and compared the area against the map. After some time, the waterfall suddenly started to flow in reverse and rushed up into the sky. It resembled an extremely large knife made of water, slicing open the sky. Luo Wuxuang stood atop the waterfall that was flowing in reverse and walked towards Qin Mu with murderous intent. He enunciated each word carefully, saying, "Celestial Venerable Mu, you are a hidden danger to the entire celestial heavens. You are extremely scheming and ruthless." Qin Mu rolled up the topographic map and smiled. "I have saved your life before. I'm not trying to kill you on behalf of the celestial heavens. I merely want to continue that battle from 40,000 years ago, to kill the devil in my heart." Luo Wuxuang was like an unsheathed divine knife, and there was a great sense of heroism surging within his heart as he announced solemnly, "Luo Wuxuang of the Spirit Elite Guards hereby challenges the overlord body of the High Emperor. Please." Qin Mu glanced at him and then shook his head, laughing. "Divine Knife Luo, you are suffering from extremely heavy injuries right now. If you don't get treated, you'll die soon." Luo Wuxuang was covered in blood, and he had wounds all over his body. It was to the point that his blood had dyed the waterfall at his feet red. He had tried to protect the disciples of the Celestial Venerables in big shots, fighting with the Heart Devils and then taking the aftereffects of the blow from the Heart Devil Celestial Emperor head-on. As a result, he had suffered severe injuries. Qin Mu was skilled in the art of healing, and had well-trained eyes that allowed him to conclude with just one glance that Luo Wuxuang's injuries would turn fatal very soon. "You have already waited for me for 40,000 years. Waiting a moment more won't make much of a difference, will it?" Qin Mu walked up to him and checked his wounds. "It's not difficult for me to treat your wounds. Stop trying to put on a tough front." Luo Wuxuang grunted, and the wounds all over his body burst open as blood spewed out. Qin Mu propped him up and brought him to the top of the mountain. He first helped him stop the bleeding of his wounds and then took out some spirit medicine to refine spirit pills as he said, "I can treat the hidden injuries on your body, and can use spirit pills and miraculous medicine to treat the damage to your primordial spirit, divine treasures, and celestial palace. However, you still have a Tao injury inside your body, a result of your collision with the palm of the Heart Devil Celestial Emperor. You'll have to refine that yourself." He continued apologetically, "I can't treat such injuries. However, I'm skilled in the technique of creation. Back then I cut off one of your arms. Now I can return an arm back to you." Luo Wuxuang shook his head. "I'm called Wuxuang One. My parents hoped that I would be matchless in this world. However, after you chopped off my arm, I then realized that Wuxuang One could also mean this, to have only one arm. All of my life's learning and comprehension are on this single arm. Even if you reconnect the arm for me, I would still chop it off." Qin Mu used his vital qi to form a furnace, and he circled it, executing all sorts of pill refining techniques. Upon hearing what Luo Wuxuang said, he turned around to smile at him as he continued to refine the spirit pills and said, "I thought so too. Aren't you afraid that I'll give you some poisonous pills when I'm treating you?" Luo Wuxuang remained silent. Qin Mu finished refining the pills and medicine and let him consume them first. "Are they poisoned?" Luo Wuxuang stared at the pills. Qin Mu then took out some silver needles and laughed. "Yes." Luo Wuxuang raised his head and swallowed these spirit pills. Qin Mu then carefully inserted the needles into his acupoints, using them to guide the medicinal energy, so that it would be able to travel into the divine treasures. Luo Wuxuang instantly felt the medicinal energy flowing into his divine treasures. The injuries to the divine treasures were slowly healing, and the tears in them were also shrinking in size. "The wounds of the Celestial Palace will be harder to treat, as I don't have much understanding of it. Also, it will be difficult for regular silver needles to pierce through the Celestial Palace, as they'll be crushed at the southern heavenly gate and won't be able to let the medicinal energy flow through. Luckily, I have a precious treasure that can pierce through the southern heavenly gate." Qin Mu took out the core of the primordial tree and made a mental command. The core became as thin and small as a needle. He pierced the wooden needle through the heart of Luo Wuxuang's brows, and the core of the primordial tree pierced through the southern heavenly gate and came to Luo Wuxuang's celestial palace. "Lengthen," Qin Mu commanded in a low voice, and the core immediately grew longer until it reached Luo Wuxuang's celestial palace's jade capital. The other end of the core entered the numinous sky hall, coming before Luo Wuxuang's primordial spirit. Qin Mu carefully inspected Luo Wuxuang's expression and said, "Are you aware that this precious treasure can change as my heart wishes it to? It's also incomparably sharp. Even if you're an expert of the numinous sky realm at this point, your life is well within my grasp. If I so wished it, this treasure would burst through your celestial palace, stabbing through your primordial spirit and bursting through your head." Luo Wuxuang's expression was calm. "I trust you. If you don't treat me, I won't be alive for much longer anyway." Qin Mu burst out laughing and let him consume the spirit pills. "You trusting me so much puts me to shame. Truth be told, even I don't trust myself. Your injuries will still need some time before they can fully recover. When you're fully recovered, you can come and challenge me again." Luo Wuxuang got up and asked, "Where do you intend to go?" "I want to follow you. If I don't eliminate the devil within my Tao heart, when I return to the celestial heavens from here, I will still die at the hands of the devil in my heart. Don't worry, when I fight you after I'm fully recovered, I'll definitely fight you in the same realm. If I use my cultivation to crush you, I won't be able to eliminate the devil in my heart." Qin Mu was about to speak when suddenly, a divine ray cut through the sky and headed straight towards them. The divine ray was gaining in speed, and from afar, an imposing vital qi was unleashed, transforming into a big hand that enveloped the peak of the mountain. A real god. Luo Wuxuang felt his heart jump and was about to make a move to block it, when suddenly he felt his vital qi thrown into some disorder. Qin Mu's vital qi exploded, and beneath his feet, the waterfall started to rise, transforming into a round dome that capped over the peak of the mountain. Luo Wuxuang raised his head to look and saw that the water flow was flowing along the surface of the round dome, and as it flowed, all sorts of strange characters and symbols emerged. It was a heavenly Tao rune. This heavenly Tao divine art was called Heaven Vault, the sixth heavenly Tao of Xuandu. The palm collided with the sixth heavenly Tao, and both exploded upon contact. Qin Mu raised his eyebrows. The cultivation of the approaching individual was incredibly dense. The celestial Venerable Mu, whose reputation shook the world back then. The overlord Bodyqin, who astonished the dragon Han, High Emperor, and Eternal Peace. "You're just SOSO. The divine ray whooshed over and came to a stop. It was a man who was covered in green gold feathers. Both of his wings crossed before his chest, and suddenly, the wings trembled, and countless green gold feathers flew out, slicing towards Qin Mu. Instantly, there were innumerous feathers flying all about the peak of the mountain, and they covered the entire peak of this mighty mountain until it was wholly impenetrable. The sword feathers were like a great torrent that encircled the peak of the mountain as they flowed upwards and downwards interchangeably. Luo Wuxuang, this is an affair between the Hao Palace and Celestial Venerable Mu. It's none of your business, don't intervene," the green-feathered man yelled out. Qin Mu raised a hand, and the waterfall stopped flowing. It transformed into the heaven vault again to shield the peak of the mountain. The innumerous green gold feathers continued to crash against the heaven vault, giving off brilliant lights and vibrant colors. Heavenly Tao divine art? There aren't any disciples within the celestial heavens who haven't cultivated it before. Celestial Venerable Mu should stop making a fool of yourself. The green gold feathered man knelt down with the heaven vault separating him and Qin Mu as he said in a solemn voice. "Qingyu, disciple of Celestial Venerable Hao, pays my respects to Celestial Venerable Mu." A disciple of Celestial Venerable Hao? Qin Mu used all of his energy to maintain the heaven vault, and with a red face he struggled to reply. "Since you're here to kill me, why are you still being so respectful?" And Qingyu didn't stand up. While using his feathers to block off the area and stop Qin Mu from escaping, he continued to kowtow respectfully towards him, kneeling 3 times and kowtowing 9 times. He replied solemnly, "I heard that during the start of the Dragon Han era, Celestial Venerable Mu imparted the way to become a god to the masses in place of Celestial Venerable You. With that, you took away my teacher's merits. However, Celestial Venerable Mu still achieved great merits. I'm under my teacher's orders to kill Celestial Venerable, so you are about to die at my hands. However, Celestial Venerable has, after all, imparted the way of becoming a god to all living beings, so I have paid my respects to you first before ending your life." Qin Mu continued to maintain the heaven vault as he replied, panting heavily, "The disciple of Celestial Venerable Hao sure has good etiquette. I'm one without a soul and will die soon. Do you not intend to seal your own realm and have a fair fight with me?" He coughed violently, and his breath was weak. A sense of desolation surged into his heart, similar to the feeling of a hero in his twilight years who was at the end of his life's journey, and he smiled miserably. "My cultivation realm has already fallen into the spirit embryo realm. You are a real god, while I'm only in the spirit embryo realm. I hope that I would be able to die more heroically. At the very least, there should be a fair fight so that I'll be able to die in peace." And Qingyu got up. Behind him, there were humming sounds, and 4 celestial palaces floated in the halo at the back of his head. His gaze was bright and he laughed. "My celestial venerable said that celestial venerable Mu's cultivation is dense beyond compare, and that you've already fused about 4 emperor's throne techniques together. Therefore, only the powers of a real god would be able to one-up celestial venerable Mu." He was a real god, and his primordial spirit was a god with the head of a bird and the body of a man that had already crossed the southern heavenly gate and wasn't far off from the Jade Pavilion. His magic power was incomparably dense, and as his cultivation burst out, countless green gold feathers instantly sliced open the heaven vault and charged towards Qin Mu. And Qingyu's voice continued to travel over. "My celestial venerable also said that celestial venerable Mu's consciousness is extremely strong, and that you've cultivated the old Buddha's Boundless Calamity Sutra. Thus, my teacher refined a precious treasure for each of us disciples to shield us from the influence of celestial venerable Mu's illusions." A jade pendant on his chest lit up, and light flowed around it. Qin Mu's expression changed slightly. This jade pendant was personally refined by celestial venerable Hao, and it was precisely capable of restraining his dreamscapes. He had just attempted to pull Qingyu into his dreamscape, and the jade pendant had unexpectedly blocked off his consciousness. And Qingyu's attack was countless times more powerful than his previous attack. The green gold-colored sword feathers covered the skies and shielded the sun, enshrouding the entire area from all 4 sides in 8 directions, making it impossible for Qin Mu to avoid them. At this very moment, Qin Mu's vital qi rose from behind him, transforming into a fan. He grabbed it and waved it with all his might. The heaven's wind was raised, and countless sword feathers were immediately swept away, vanishing. The 8th heavenly Tao, heaven wind. And Qingyu opened his mouth and spat out a spirit bead. The heaven wind whooshed about noisily, but it was unable to move him even an inch. The power of the heaven wind was immediately broken through completely. Qin Mu was astonished. Xuandu's heaven duke is truly in danger. The 2 moves of heavenly Tao divine art that he had just executed were both easily broken through by Qingyu. Qin Mu's heavenly Tao divine art didn't merely include the heavenly Tao runes that were calculated using classic algebra, but it also included runes computed by the computational canon of supreme molecule. However, it was evident that the celestial heavens had come up with various divine arts targeted towards the heavenly Tao, so as to eliminate Heaven Duke. The celestial heavens probably haven't broken through all 49 heavenly Tao yet. Otherwise, Heaven Duke would be dead by now. However, this day is probably coming soon, Qin Mu thought to himself. And Qingyu rushed to the peak of the mountain. Behind him there was boundless green light as the innumerous sword feathers flew back, coming together to form a green-colored wing. He laughed. "Celestial Venerable Mu, I've already told you, heavenly Tao divine arts aren't rare in the celestial heavens." Both of his wings pierced forwards, one after the other. After cultivating 4 types of Emperor's Throne techniques, his cultivation was incomparably dense, making the attack unexpectedly powerful. The wings sliced space into thousands of pieces. At the same time, his primordial spirit stood within the central celestial palace with his sleeves fluttering and hugging a blazing sun in his arms. A ray of concentrated light shot out from the blazing sun and headed straight towards Qin Mu. In each of the other 3 celestial palaces, the apparitions of his primordial spirit emerged as well. They each directed the power of the 3 celestial palaces and executed their divine arts, forming 3 giants: a strikingly beautiful heavenly lady, a plain-looking ancient god, and a fierce and evil-looking demon king, and they all attacked Qin Mu at the same time. This was the first time Qin Mu had met a strong opponent who had simultaneously cultivated several Emperor's Throne techniques, and had also cultivated them to the god realm. He knew it would be difficult to go up against him with just heavenly Tao divine arts, and thus he decisively grabbed onto his sword pellet. The sword pellet exploded open, and sword rays danced about the skies. The clanking sounds of collisions rang endlessly. In a split second, the two figures vanished from the peak of the mountain. They had both been struck by each other's power until they flew out backward. In an instant, the two of them had been blown backward dozens of miles. The mighty mountain made a cracking sound, and a crack appeared on its peak. Luo Wuxuang stood atop the peak with the core of the primordial tree in the heart of his brows and silver needles all over his body, and he dared not make any unexpected movements. The silver needles were easier to deal with. At most, he could circulate his power and break the needles, leaving the broken bits within his divine treasures. However, the core of the primordial tree in the heart of his brows wouldn't be able to be broken. If he circulated his power there, his own celestial palace, along with his brain, would probably be stirred into paste. I fear that Overlord Bodychin may not be this man's match. The difference in their realms is too much. Just as he thought about this, the divine arts of the two, who were dozens of miles away, had already reached the peak of the mountain. In the instant that they were blown away, they had each executed hundreds of divine arts. And Qingyu had more moves in divine arts. The primordial spirit in each of his 4 celestial palaces executed various Emperor's Throne techniques, and the various divine arts were executed very easily. The power of every move and technique was incredibly strong, and with hundreds of divine arts rushing over, the total power was considerably terrifying. Yet Qinmu was simply using sword techniques. Countless flying swords came whooshing over from dozens of miles away, and the sword technique executed by each sword was unique. His sword was also able to execute the most complicated sword technique. As the flying sword shook gently, the most brilliant sword rays burst forth, and it then transformed into vast mountains and rivers. There were also some flying swords that were leaping about at inconceivable rhythms, fading in and out of sight. Some swords were very fast while others were comparatively slow. The various sword techniques changed about endlessly, and from within the different sword techniques, they also formed even more exquisite and intricate sword techniques. Although Qinmu had so many flying swords, all of his swords were actually countless divine arts, and all of the sword techniques and divine arts formed a single system. It was a portion of a glorious great divine art. Luo Wuxuang watched the sword forest flying by the top of his head, mesmerized. Qinmu's sword techniques had revealed to him the almost perfect beauty of great sword Tao. He entered the path through the knife, and was the #1 divine knife of the celestial heavens. He was also Qinmu's enemy, who had considered Qinmu to be the one he must defeat in his lifetime. He had recalled the sword technique that Qinmu had used to slice off his arm countless times, and he also battled High Emperor Sword God Bai Chuer countless times in an attempt to search for Qinmu's shadow in Bai Chuer sword techniques. The one who most admired Qinmu's sword techniques, besides Celestial Venerable Hao, was himself. Above Luo Wuxuang, the sword collided with the divine art as thousands of divine arts clashed above his head, causing their powers to explode and shatter the sky above him. One terrifying wave after another fell, and the silver needles in Luo Wuxiang's body had already melted from the incinerating heat. The good thing was that although he couldn't use his magic power, his body's cultivation stayed there. Although Qinmu and Qingyu's power was extremely spectacular, they paled in comparison to him, an expert at the numinous sky realm. The aftermath of their divine arts hadn't hurt him yet. He looked up and saw that their divine arts were of equal power. Some of Qinmu's flying swords were blocked, while some flew past Qingyu's divine art and towards him. And Qingyu's divine arts were like towering white waves that came one after another to drown the flying swords while rushing towards Qinmu. It was then that both of them steadied themselves and stopped backing off. They each took a stride forward to receive each other's swords and divine arts, heading towards the peak at the speed of thunder and lightning. And Qingyu received Qinmu's flying swords. He shook his wings, and countless green-gold feather swords revolved around him to block the incoming flying swords, feathers shrouding of the sky. He rushed forward towards the barrage of flying swords, choosing to accumulate his aura instead of dodging Qinmu's swords. He aimed to accumulate his aura to the maximum and kill Qinmu with one strike. On the other side of the mountain, vital qi rushed out of Qinmu's head and morphed into a heaven bell that fell downward. Clang! 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 The heaven bell vibrated relentlessly and blocked Qingyu's divine arts. It soon shattered, but another one took its place. He ran along as the bell tolled relentlessly, his aura growing stronger and stronger. He clearly had the same idea as Qingyu. When two warriors face on a narrow path, the braver one wins. Although this wasn't a narrow path, the victorious warrior would be the braver one. More flying swords flew towards Qingyu, which collided with his feather swords, causing a dense amount of clashing sounds. Suddenly, a flying sword broke through the divine art of feathers shrouding of the sky and went straight for Qingyu. Feathers shrouding of the sky was a sword skill he founded. However, due to the lack of reforms in the celestial heavens, Qingyu saw no flaws in his skill, while Qinmu saw flaws everywhere. Qingyu still ran forward like crazy as the halo behind him shook. It was a blessing given by Celestial Venerable, how that could block the flying swords. Yet, more and more of them burst through the feathers shrouding of the sky from every angle and with greater intricacy. Even Celestial Venerable Hao's blessing could no longer block them. Qingyu waved his hand to block them and used various divine arts. He was still fast as he ran towards the peak and he still retained his aura. He couldn't give up his accumulated aura, nor could he stop, which caused his divine art to not be as perfect and strong as usual. Chi! A flying sword flew straight into his body, and Qingyu bit his teeth and pressed on. The primordial spirit at the celestial palace on the back of his head still pummeled towards Qinmu. The heaven bells kept ringing and being crushed. In the split second before the bell could be regenerated, his divine art hit Qinmu's body, heavily injuring him. Chi! And Qingyu was hit by another sword, and then another one, which entered his chest. Chi chi chi! In the blink of an eye, there were 10 more flying swords stuck in his chest. Blood flowed from his mouth, yet he still smiled. He refused to stop and had a strangely bitter aura. The peak of the mountain and Qinmu were within touching distance. Yet, one of the swords stuck within him had its divine art burst forth. The structures of his corporeal body and his divine bridge were ruined. Another sword gave off a sword light before it cleaved into his divine bridge. If his bridge collapsed, Qinmu would no longer have to do anything. His own celestial palace would crush him, and Qingyu saw that his death was soon approaching. My celestial venerable has ordered me to do so. He rushed towards Qinmu smiling, his white teeth dyed red with blood. His aura exploded in a unique way as he shouted, "I must bring celestial venerable Mu's head to him. While I can't take away his head, I can take away his life. The way to kill Mu." Letting loose of the heavenly feathers. His brutal aura reached its peak at this moment. Vast amounts of feathers were behind him as his corporeal body and primordial spirit also became feathers, morphing to form an incomparably powerful divine art, as he lunged towards Qinmu. Luo Wushuang looked up and saw the two of them collide at that moment. This terrifying force was sent into their air, sweeping through it and flattening everything in the clouds. The force struck down and fractured the mountain and the waterfall. It was as if 200-mile-long snow-white sashes were picked up by the hurricane and were drifting in the wind. A grunt came from Qinmu. This letting loose of the heavenly feathers divine art was aimed at his countless weak points. It aimed to transmit its power into his body and contort his corporeal body. He heard the sound of his own finger bones cracking, followed by his hand bones and his arm bones. It soon reached his neck and skull. A crisp sound of cracking came from his chest, sounding as if it were 2 firecrackers exploding. The sound went from his chest to his feet. Dong! Dong! Qinmu and Qingyu were separated, and they landed on the 2 mountains of the peak that had been split into 2 by their collision. Suddenly a pack sound emerged, and a blood hole burst open on Qinmu's skin. It spurted out blood as a feather stained with blood drifted out. Pack, 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 pack. All over his body, his skin blew open, and green feathers flew out one after another. They danced around Qinmu, seeming as if they wanted to bury him in feathers. Opposite him, Qingyu revealed a smile from his shaking body as he said, "Celestial Venerable Mu is truly worthy of the title of Celestial Venerable. I couldn't do anything using my own paths, skills, and divine arts. However, while my divine arts failed, my Celestial Venerable's divine art didn't. I finally took you away. Not bad." And Qinmu's body shook as the blood and flesh of his injuries grew back. The broken bones reconnected themselves, while the crushed ones regrew, and the spoiled blood became new blood again. It was as if Qin Mu was reborn. He lifted his palm and attracted water from the waterfall to wash away the blood on his body. He said, his aura still in peak condition, "You managed to injure me. Celestial Venerable How should be grateful that he has a disciple like you under him." And Qingyu stared at him blankly, and suddenly, a loud sound came from inside his body as the celestial palace on the back of his head collapsed. As expected of a celestial venerable, his corporeal body burst open as his primordial spirit dissipated and soul dispersed. He died on the spot. Qin Mu spat out a ragged breath and complimented, "This Qingyu wasn't bad. He was powerful and elegant." His face suddenly became wax yellow as his breath became haggard. Although Qingyu failed to kill him, Celestial Venerable Hao's divine art was indeed made to exploit his weak points, which caused his primordial spirit to be injured severely. Although Qingyu's last strike failed to destroy his corporeal body, it caused his spirit embryo divine treasure to be cleansed. The only reason he didn't show his weakness before Qingyu's death was that he wanted to maintain his own pride and dignity. Luo Wushuang looked around him and saw flying swords flying towards Qin Mu, clashing in front of him to form a sword pellet. The fact that he was able to refine his forging technique to be as smooth as flowing water was extraordinary. Divine Knife Luo, you are called the best divine knife of the celestial heavens. You showed me your knife skills before. Qin Mu put away his sword pellet and retrieved some spirit medicine to treat his injuries and plainly said, "When I was still a worthy opponent of Zhehuali, I planned to ask him to let me show you my sword skills. However, he was too proud and wanted to defeat me, so I couldn't show them to you. Now that you've seen my sword skills, how are they? Very intricate and almost perfectly marvelous." Luo Wushuang praised him from the bottom of his heart. "Your sword skills are already unrivaled, but I'm confident that my knife skills will beat your sword skills. If it was in the past, I might have lost to your sword again, but now I have destroyed the devil in my heart and no longer fear it." Qin Mu consumed the spirit pills and laughed. "You speak in almost exactly the same way as Zhehuali. However, he destroyed the devil in his heart earlier than you, and yet he still wasn't a worthy opponent of mine." Luo Wushuang grunted, and Qin Mu forged some spirit pills for him as he said, "You can excrete the silver needles from your body. For now, don't remove the core of the primordial tree in the heart of your brows. These spirit pills are meant for you to treat the damage to your celestial palace. Refine the power of the medicine in your body first, then take these spirit pills on the road. Just now, my battle with Qingyu must have attracted the attention of other experts of the celestial heavens. We need to hurry." He pointed towards the east and said, "I just saw some magnificent buildings in the air, likely built by the Great Void's masters of creation. Let's check it out." Luo Wushuang took the spirit pills and couldn't help but ask, "You're really in the spirit embryo realm?" "That's right." Qin Mu smiled and said, "Are you sure you want to fight me in the same realm?" Luo Wushuang's expression was uncertain as he changed the topic and asked, "You just said the buildings here were built by the Great Void's masters of creation. Have you been here before?" "No." The third eye in the heart of his brows opened as he visualized for a bit. He saw a divine dragon that was at least 100 feet long appear out of thin air. Luo Wushuang was shocked and thought that it was the devil in his heart, so he immediately clutched his knife handle. Qin Mu shook his head. "There won't be heart devils here. The heart devils are actually created by the collapsing consciousnesses of the Great Void's masters of creation in accordance with the devils in our hearts. This divine dragon is my creation and isn't dangerous." Luo Wushuang hesitated and asked, "How do you know the master of this land was a master of creation of the Great Void? Are you one of them?" Qin Mu sized up the divine dragon, jumped onto its back and laughed. "No. Fly." The divine dragon beneath him waved around, trying to fly, but it couldn't. It cried out, "Maha Maha." Qin Mu scratched his head. "Am I too heavy?" He leaped off of the dragon's back and tested it, saying, "Fly." The dragon leapt into the air and fell straight down onto the ground and into the waterfall beneath. Qin Mu was stunned as Xu Jun's laughter came through into his head. "You want to create with your current power? You're far from that. Your consciousness attainment right now is only that of a low-class master of creation, similar to that of a newborn baby from our race." Qin Mu's face went black. and he walked down the mountain with Luo Wushuang. Luo Wushuang still had the core of the primordial tree in the heart of his brows, which made movement inconvenient. However, he was still a great expert of the numinous sky realm and retained his foundation. Thus he utilized the vital qi in his divine treasures and moved as fast as Qin Mu. Those young experts from the celestial heavens will surely notice that palace and head there too. You are walking into a trap, Luo Wushuang reminded him after noting his direction. Qin Mu shook his head and said, "By the time we arrive there, I will have mostly recovered." Luo Wushuang reminded him, "A lot of people want to kill you and few people survived on the boat. Those who survived the dangerous conditions of the Great Void are powerful people, with most of them being true gods. Their power will be stronger than that of Qingyu." Qin Mu smiled. "Divine Knife Luo hated me to the core and wanted to kill me so badly. Why do you now worry about my safety?" Luo Wushuang gave a humph and plainly said, "I just don't want you to die at the hands of others. You haven't lost to my knife yet. Don't be too cocky, Overlord Body Qin. The celestial heavens is filled with strong practitioners and young talents, and some of them might be beings who have cultivated a great celestial heavens technique." Qin Mu's heart turned cold as he unconsciously thought about Lian Huahun. On the boat, Lian Huahun told him that she had cultivated and merged 18 Emperor's Throne techniques, while Yun Chuxiu told him that she had understood a great celestial heavens technique. In addition, Lian Huahun was indeed very powerful. Although he was treating Luo Wushuang's injuries, one of her strikes was able to pulverize all 4 of his arms, which showed her remarkable capabilities. A lady at the Divine Bridge realm that hadn't experienced Eternal Peace's reform or opened the Celestial River Divine Treasure was able to use the Great Celestial Heavens technique to sever Qin Mu's 4 arms. Lian Huahun's Great Celestial Heavens technique was truly something to be feared. "I certainly can't beat a true god who has cultivated a Great Celestial Heavens technique. But if I comprehend one of my own..." Qin Mu shook his head. Emperor's Throne techniques were concentrated in the hands of the Celestial Heavens' 10 Celestial Venerables. Why would they impart the techniques that they had collected painstakingly to him? More importantly, his spirit embryo divine treasure lacked a celestial palace. The greatest use of a Great Celestial Heavens technique came from the sheer number of celestial palaces. With tenacious magic power, the skills one was apt at would increase. What can one do without a celestial palace? He couldn't help but ponder in a distressed manner. After not too long, the pool beneath the waterfall suddenly burst open, and the divine dragon that Qin Mu had visualized shook its head, climbed out of the pool, and smelled the environment for Qin Mu's scent. "Maha!" The divine dragon was happy and hopped around, walking for a bit before going prone to smell the ground, tracking Qin Mu via his scent. Ahead were the palaces of the Masters of Creation, a magnificent group of buildings. Looking at it from afar, the first thing one saw was its large tall walls that lay parallel against the cliff wall. It was extremely steep and smooth, with no gaps in the bricks at all. The wall gave off an awe-inspiring feel before they could get closer. This wall was as smooth and reflective as a mirror. Standing in front of it, they could see themselves and the scenery behind them. The buildings in the city were even taller than the wall. Beside the wall lay buildings like palaces and towers, as well as defensive buildings like sentry towers. Qin Mu and Luo Wushuang approached the city to size up its tall buildings. This city of the Masters of Creation was too big. Compared to it, they were little figures. The wall's smoothness was near impossible to create. Even the artisans of the celestial heavens and eternal peace wouldn't be able to achieve such a feat. Their artisans could polish such a smooth reflective surface, but to create such a large wall and keep it so flat would be impossible for them. Regardless of how good their algebra was, there would be tiny flaws in the construction process, but this wall had no flaws. The wall of the Masters of Creation could only be created via visualization, not construction. Why aren't the buildings here decorated? Luo Wushuang gazed into the horizon and saw that all of the buildings were plain with no decorations at all. He couldn't help but wonder why. Isn't it plain to have buildings entirely made out of white walls and red bricks? Qin Mu explained. The Masters of Creation were like this. They were very outdated too. Their society was somewhere between tribal chiefdoms and a country, and it contained little art. They were like a bunch of primitives. Shu Jun's angry voice appeared in his head. "You're the primitives." Country bumpkins like you are the primitives. We are masters of creation. Omnipotent masters of creation who created everything in the world. To us, you are the country bumpkins. Qinmu walked towards the city and said, their lives were simple. Their tribal wars consisted of people wearing beast skin shorts armed with bone clubs rushing at each other, striking at each other's brains. Xu Jun's voice trembled in anger. Be asterisk star, don't you dare insult us. After they learned visualization and became masters of creation, they learned how to visualize beautiful ladies for pleasure. Qinmu continued. Luo Wushuang couldn't help but comment, such primitives. Xu Jun was furious. Qinmu suddenly stopped. Luo Wushuang was perplexed and looked at him curiously. Wrong. Qinmu looked up at the walls, visibly perplexed as he said, this is the world created by the masters of creation. They created everything here with no enemies. So why did they build a city with such high walls? What made them so afraid? Luo Wushuang saw the link. The walls were used for defense, and such walls were clearly built to prevent exterior things from entering. Thus, what were they worried about? They were the creators of the Great Void, so what was it that made them feel fear? The walls are clean. There are no signs of battle. Luo Wushuang said, I feel that you may be overthinking things. Maybe they built the walls for show. Maybe they were narcissistic to the point of looking in the mirror all the time. Qinmu shook his head and retrieved a sword to scrape the wall. A sword trace appeared before it disappeared very quickly. The wall became complete, flat and reflective again. Luo Wushuang's heart jumped, and he said seriously, this wall reminds me of a celestial venerable who was rumored to have created a divine art that allows a substance to never change. This isn't a substance created by the unchanging divine art. It's a substance created by consciousness, a visualized substance. Qinmu said, this city is shrouded in the consciousness of the masters of creation, which makes it indestructible. Even if it's shattered, it will rebuild itself. On top of that, there are the sentry towers. The masters of creation had a chaotic combat style, which rarely used things like sentry towers. On top of that, the palaces and buildings here are high because they were built to see into the distance and observe whether enemies would strike. He revealed his doubt. This was a world created by the masters of creation, so why would they create powerful enemies for themselves? That being the case, where did their enemies come from? Was it invaders from the celestial heavens like them? Or was it that there really were terrifying monsters in the Great Void? He couldn't help but recall the scene he saw in the consciousnesses of the walking corpses. Could it be the master of creation that plunged the Great Void in danger? Luo Wushuang pulled the core of the primordial tree out from between his eyebrows. After, his primordial spirit left his body, flew into the air, and looked into the city to survey it. There's no one inside. Celestial Venerable Hua. He recalled his primordial spirit, visibly surprised and shocked. He put the core of the primordial tree back into the heart of his brows and quickly said, I saw Celestial Venerable Hua. Celestial Venerable Hua. They looked at one another and instantly flew into the air before slowly descending into the city. Luo Wushuang quickly walked forward. He only saw blazing divine flames in front of him that melted the void around them. A man stood inside the flames, twisting the space. His silhouette was blurred. However, judging from the ring of flame behind his head, he was the celestial heaven's Celestial Venerable Hua. Luo Wushuang walked behind him and half-kneeled, saying, Spirit Elite Guards Luo Wushuang hereby pays his respects to Celestial Venerable Hua. Celestial Venerable Hua. Celestial Venerable Mu led me here to receive you. Qinmu walked beside him. Before continuing to walk, he said, Divine Knife Luo, this isn't Celestial Venerable Hua, it's a void imprint of him. Luo Wushuang was stunned. He stood up and followed Qinmu to the front of this Celestial Venerable Hua, and sized him up carefully. He was able to find the Great Tao rune that created this apparition, it was just that it was extremely small. This Celestial Venerable Hua was merely his Great Tao imprint. Celestial Venerable Hua was truly too powerful. He fought people here, and his terrifying cultivation and Great Tao imprinted his figure in the void of the city, unable to be erased. Celestial Venerable Hua must have met an unprecedentedly strong enemy here that forced him to use his techniques and divine arts to their limits. His great Tao rune was so strong that it imprinted him in the void, forming his figure. Even after it left, the apparition didn't disappear. Qin Mu looked in the direction of Celestial Venerable Hua's gaze and thought about it. He walked to the opposite side of Celestial Venerable Hua and stood steadily before pointing out. His opponent stood here. Considering Celestial Venerable Hua's strength, his opponent must not have been weak, likely being as strong as him. Strangely though, why didn't his opponent leave behind an imprint of his figure? Luo Wushuang said. Overlord Body Qin, you're looking down on the Celestial Venerables. Outside of you, which one of them isn't so strong as to be unable to find a worthy opponent? Celestial Venerable Hua's opponent naturally wasn't as strong as him, and thus didn't leave behind an imprint. Qin Mu shook his head. If his opponent wasn't strong enough, why would he be so defensive as to raise his cultivation power to its limit? Luo Wushuang was stunned, for it made sense. It was just that Celestial Venerable Hua was so powerful, so where in the world could he have found an opponent of similar strength? A terrifying thought was birthed from his mind. Unless it was Celestial Venerable Su, who was with Celestial Venerable Hua. Celestial Venerable Su fought Celestial Venerable Hua here, forcing the latter to use his full power, which caused him to leave behind the Great Tao imprint. And Celestial Venerable Hua got injured. Qin Mu lifted his arm to point at Celestial Venerable Hua's imprint. Luo Wushuang looked in its direction and was greatly shocked. The Great Tao rune on the heart of the imprint of Celestial Venerable Hua was extremely blurry, suggesting that his enemy must have hit him, causing the imprint to be missing in that position. Celestial Venerable Hua was indeed injured. It was just that, could anyone really injure him? Could it really be that Celestial Venerable Su struck at Celestial Venerable Hua? Luo Wushuang was going to examine it, but Qin Mu pulled him back hurriedly. He shook his head and explained, if it was a complete Great Tao rune imprint, it would be stable and unlikely to explode. However, a part of it is missing from his chest, which makes this imprint unstable. If you touch it, it's likely to explode and incinerate us to ashes. Luo Wushuang stopped immediately and looked at him, saying, You know a lot. I'm a Celestial Venerable and an Overlord body. Of course I know a lot. Qin Mu smiled and carefully sized up the injury on Celestial Venerable Hua's imprint. His heart stirred slightly as he asked, Is Celestial Venerable Su's weapon of choice a sword? Luo Wushuang shook his head and said, Celestial Venerable Su is strongest with divine arts and rarely uses divine weapons. That's strange, who used a sword to harm Celestial Venerable Hua? Qin Mu inquired. Which Celestial Venerable in the Celestial Heavens has the best sword skills? Luo Wushuang looked at him. Qin Mu rephrased the question and asked, Except for me, who has the best sword skills? Luo Wushuang shook his head. I haven't heard of a Celestial Venerable whose sword skills are unrivaled. Each one of them has their strengths. Sword skills belong to the post-celestial Great Tao created by post-celestial creatures. Which Celestial Venerable would attempt it? The Celestial Venerables seek pre-celestial Great Taos, and only gods and devils like me who didn't enter the path would seek post-celestial Great Taos like the sword path and knife path. Qin Mu was stunned as a thought appeared in his head. He mumbled, Maybe that Celestial Venerable could. Is he here? Is he really here? Luo Wushuang was confused about who he was talking about. Qin Mu suddenly became agitated. Throughout history, only one person cultivated the sword path to the point of 33 heavens, the first person whose sword path was top-notch. He wasn't within the 10 Celestial Venerables, but he had the title and was one of the 5 founding elders of the Heaven Alliance. Celestial Venerable Qin Yi, who had transmigrated with him into the Dragon Han era, whose alias was Founding Emperor Qin Kai. Was it really Founding Emperor who fought Celestial Venerable Hua? Qin Mu suppressed the agitation within him. If the person who injured Celestial Venerable Hua was Founding Emperor, then Carefree Village was in the Great Void too. He really wanted to meet this ancestor and Tao friend of his. If Carefree Village is in the Great Void, then my brother should be here too. If I can contact him, I can find Carefree Village. He tried to establish a connection with Qin Fengqing but felt nothing. Qin Mu frowned and glanced at Luo Wushuang. He suddenly smiled and said, Divine Knife Luo, are you interested in making a pact of Little Earth Count? Luo Wushuang was confused. Qin Mu smiled. Your knife against my sword. Knife path against sword path. We only use these two skills and no cultivation. If I lose, you can do anything you want to me. If you lose, you will betray the celestial heavens and swear your allegiance to eternal peace. Luo Wuxuang probed him. You will lose heavily without magic power cultivation, and with only our sword skills and path and knife skills and path. I have already cultivated my knife path to the point of 13 heavens, and am about to reach the 14th. However, your sword path is still at 3 heavens, right? Qinmu smiled. Are you willing to gamble? Luo Wuxuang shook his head. No. I'd prefer that you fight me in the same realm, even if it means you have a cultivation advantage, instead of taking advantage of you. Qinmu frowned. How stubborn. However, Luo Wuxuang's insistence did rouse admiration in him. Celestial Venerable Hua is bleeding. Luo Wuxuang moved to the back of Celestial Venerable Hua's imprint and looked at the wall and its edges. There was a drop of flaming blood on it. Within the flames, a sword light hovered above the fresh blood. Qinmu came to its side and examined it carefully. This was god blood of a Celestial Venerable, which contained a Celestial Venerable's divine art within it. The power within the blood and the sword was contained, but both of them still felt fear. Don't touch it. If you do, the balance will be broken. If the power contained in the god blood of the Celestial Venerable is unleashed, this place will be completely destroyed. Luo Wuxuang took in cold breath and backed off, whispering, even if I recovered fully and was back to peak condition, I still wouldn't be able to escape. Qinmu backed off too. He didn't dare to release any aura so as to prevent breaking the balance of the divine art within the god blood. This drop of god blood was too dangerous, and an even more terrifying fact was how if the god blood exploded, it would impact Celestial Venerable Hua's imprint, and cause it to be activated too. At that moment, suddenly 2 lights flew on top of the tall city walls and danced around like butterflies above the city. It was 2 ladies battling to the death. Little wretch, you stole my man, killed me, and lived your life under my identity. You're the wretch. You kept trying to harm me. You think I didn't know that? You hid for so long, but I had already guessed that you were hiding amongst the 10 Celestial Venerables. Today, I'll skin you and reveal your true identity. Qinmu and Luo Wuxuang were stunned as they looked at the 2 figures above. Suddenly, the lights were separated. Yun Chuxiu and Lian Huahun broke apart and stood on 2 different towers. Their clothes fluttered, and their beauty was unrivaled. You allowed your son Hao to kill my son Qi. Do you think I didn't know about that? You reared a pretty boy, Celestial Venerable Yu, and hooked up with him to plot for the throne of Celestial Emperor. Do you think I didn't know about that? Wretch! The 2 ladies simultaneously hollered before fighting again. Luo Wuxuang's face was pale. He felt like he had heard things he shouldn't be hearing. All along, his eyes were cold, his expression icy. He seldom smiled and looked as though he carried a deep and bitter feud. However, the details shared in Yun Chuxiu and Lian Huahuan's conversation were indeed shocking. He couldn't help but be appalled. There are 2 Celestial Venerables behind these 2 ladies? Who are Hao and Qi? Could Hao be Celestial Venerable Hao? Also, that lady actually referred to Celestial Venerable Yu as a pretty boy. Luo Wuxuang acted decisively, hiding among the shadows of the structures below. He beckoned Qinmu, signaling that he should hide quickly as well, before being discovered by the 2 ladies. Qinmu was also confused by what he heard. Luo Wuxuang hurriedly rushed out to drag him into the shadows. He lowered his voice and said, Do you want to die? If we are discovered hearing all of these secrets, we're dead for sure. I heard there used to be an ancient god in the celestial heavens who was killed from behind as he charged onto the battlefield because he knew too many secrets. He and Qinmu arrived among the shadows, feeling extremely shocked and terrified. During the first year of the Dragon Han era, he knew that Celestial Empress backed Celestial Venerable Yu. Celestial Empress was enraged when she discovered her sister, Mistress Yuanmu, had an affair with the ancient Celestial Emperor and gave birth to Celestial Venerable Hao. Celestial Venerable Hao was abnormally clever. He opened the 5 elements divine treasure and hence became a Celestial Venerable. Her son, however, didn't have such glory. For the sake of her position, she supported Celestial Venerable Yu and suppressed Celestial Venerable Hao. He felt that Lian Huahan should be the one saying that Yun Chuxiu had reared the pretty boy celestial venerable Yu, but instead it was the opposite. This was something he didn't expect. All along, he thought that Yun Chuxiu was celestial empress, but he now realized it was the other way around. Yun Chuxiu was Mistress Yuanmu, while Lian Huahan was celestial empress. Qin Mu was flirting with the mother of celestial venerable Hao. That day at the Jade Pool, I fought with Yun Chuxiu and forced her to execute her ultimate skill. Since she was impersonating celestial empress, that means the ultimate skill she executed wasn't real. Cold sweat was rolling down Qin Mu's forehead. This was a trap, a gigantic trap. Whoever believed that was her ultimate skill would die a terrible death. As to why she immediately helped me upon seeing Mistress Yuanmu's corpse in the crystal coffin, it wasn't because she was worried that Mistress Yuanmu might return back to life, but rather that her identity would be revealed. Qin Mu was drenched in sweat. At that point in time, if he had tried to summon the soul of Mistress Yuanmu, he would have ended up summoning the soul of Yun Chuxiu, exposing her on the spot. Also, it would then be uncovered that Mistress Yuanmu was still alive. This little maiden. Qin Mu gritted his teeth. The two traveled through the shadows quietly. The structures of the Masters of Creation City were extremely huge, which aided them in not being discovered by the two ladies fighting above. The above battle between Yun Chuxiu and Lian Huahan was terrifying. One by one, towering structures were destroyed by their divine arts, as small hills and giant rocks of all sorts fell from the sky. The sight made Qin Mu and Luo Wuxuang's scalps go numb. If these structure fragments smashed into celestial venerable Hu's imprint or that drop of god blood, the entire city, including them, would be wiped out. Bizarrely, before they could land, these structure fragments disintegrated and disappeared into midair, turning into a strange consciousness that rose up into the sky. Those structures then regenerated after being destroyed, as though they were being rebuilt by an invisible divine power. This was the wonder of the Masters of Creation City. Although those structure fragments were unable to land on the city, the aftermath of the two ladies' divine arts was able to ripple through. The two may be of the divine bridge realm, but Qin Mu was very familiar with their real abilities. On the ship, Lian Huahan had attacked him before, breaking his 4 arms. And when he fought Yun Chuxiu, both suffered heavy injuries. Their abilities weren't inferior to true gods, and they were even stronger. Even so, they didn't display their true ultimate skills. They were trying to force each other to execute their actual techniques, so as to reveal which celestial venerable they were. Whoever's identity was revealed would die first. After all, Celestial Empress and Mistress Yuanmu were ancient gods. They were as infamous as the ancient Celestial Emperor in the Heaven Alliance, and were bound to be killed by the other celestial venerables. The early goal of the Heaven Alliance when it was first established was to give people the right to survive. However, during the middle of the Dragon Han era, after Celestial Venerable Yun recruited Celestial Venerable Hao and the rest, the goal of the alliance shifted to killing the ancient gods in order to wrest back the right to rule. Hence, ancient gods that had infiltrated the Heaven Alliance absolutely couldn't afford to reveal their identities. Qin Mu and Luo Wuxuang traversed through this empty city at great speed. They were feeling a little fearful. The divine arts of Yun Chuxiu and Lian Huahan were too powerful. Who knew when the aftermath of their divine arts would trigger Celestial Venerable Hu's imprint or that drop of god blood? This was akin to having a knife placed at their necks, not knowing when they would die. Similarly, they couldn't afford to reveal their identities. If the two ladies discovered them, they would be killed. These two ladies would absolutely not allow anyone to know their secrets. Even Qin Mu would have to die. Although he was still useful to them, no amount of usefulness could match up to the importance of one's life. Now, Qin Mu finally understood that the more one knew, the faster one died. Maha! The head of a divine dragon suddenly appeared in front of them. It broke into a smile, opening its mouth to lick the stunned Qin Mu with its bright red tongue, excitedly saying, "Maha! Maha!" Qin Mu's face turned ashen, while Luo Wuxuang's limbs went cold. This divine dragon was produced when Qin Mu was creating things at the top of the mountain. He planned to use it for transport. However, as his abilities were insufficient, the divine dragon that he visualized was unable to fly. Hence it was abandoned by him. He didn't expect the divine dragon to follow their scent all the way here. Above, the sound of divine arts clashing suddenly stopped, and so did the tremors. The city was once again quiet. The foreheads of Qin Mu and Luo Wushuang were covered with cold sweat. Qin Mu made a hush sign to the divine dragon. However, it was too stupid to understand its meaning. The two and the dragon tiptoed forward, trying to secretly walk out of this life-threatening city. Oh, it's Celestial Venerable Mu and Divine Knife Luo. Suddenly, a lady's laughter could be heard from the above palace in front of them. The two and the dragon raised their heads and saw Yun Chuxiu sitting on the palace's roof. Her palms were placed on the side of the roof as her calves dangled, swaying leisurely. Her calves were attractive. They were fair and had beautiful curves. Yun Chuxiu laughed. Celestial Venerable and Divine Knife are so secretive. Where are you heading? Qin Mu gave a cough. Before he could speak, Lian Huahuan's voice came from behind. She asked coldly, "How long have Celestial Venerable Mu and Divine Knife Luo been here?" Yun Chuxiu giggled. "Is that important?" Qin Mu coughed and said, "We just arrived and we're about to meet Celestial Venerable Hua. He's also in the city." Yun Chuxiu and Lian Huahuan's expressions changed drastically. Lian Huahan immediately flew up and surveyed her surroundings. Right at this moment, many rays of divine light flew over, landing in the city. Shui Yuqing, disciple of Celestial Venerable Zhu, pays my respects to Celestial Venerable Mu. Hua Yu, disciple of Celestial Venerable Lang, pays my respects to Celestial Venerable Mu. Pan Chunjin, disciple of Celestial Venerable Hao, pays my respects to Celestial Venerable Mu. Luo Fengqing, disciple of Green Deity of the Eastern Sky, pays my respects to Celestial Venerable Mu. Loud and clear sounds rang as the light rays landed, transforming into true gods one after another. They surrounded Qin Mu, standing on top of those ancient-looking majestic structures and looking down at him, revealing their excitement. "Celestial Venerable Mu, we almost died at your hands. I bet you didn't expect to see us here alive." Xiao Yufang chuckled. "After Celestial Venerable Mu is dead, we can return to the celestial heavens and announce to the people that Celestial Venerable Mu died in the Great Void while trying to save us. He will live up to the good name of a Celestial Venerable. However, that's only after he's dead." Hua Yu was warm and gentle and had a smile on his face. He leisurely said, "Celestial Venerable took advantage of the absence of my master, Celestial Venerable Lang, and murdered the disciples of our Langxian Divine Palace. At that time I was away, or else my senior and junior brothers wouldn't have died such terrible deaths. Today is the day of Celestial Venerable's death, hence avenging my dead brothers. Celestial Venerable, do you have any last words?" Pan Chunjin laughed. "Whatever last words he may have, they're useless. In the Great Void there's no Yudu or Mingdu. We are outside the jurisdiction of Heaven Duke, and Goddess of Heavenly Een is unable to come here. Dying here means that your soul is indeed scattered, truly dead." Qin Mu looked at his surroundings. There were over 10 true gods that had arrived. He didn't care much about the disciples of Emperor's Throne individuals. However, the disciples of Celestial Venerables were by no means insignificant. These more than 10 true gods were able to beat him to a pulp. There was no need for them to hide the true intention of this journey anymore. They wanted to kill Qin Mu, then return to report on their mission. Earlier, they clearly needed to ensure that they survived traversing the Great Void. Qin Mu glanced at Luo Wushuang and whispered, "Has Divine Knife Luo recovered from his injuries?" Luo Wushuang hesitated a while. Obviously, Qin Mu's intention was to use him as an accomplice to get rid of these disciples of Celestial Venerables and Emperor's Throne individuals. Now that he knew the secret of Celestial Empress and Mistress Yuanmu, he had no chance of staying alive unless he fought. However, his injuries were too serious. His celestial palace had yet to recover. If he pulled out the core of the primordial tree and fought recklessly, his celestial palace was likely to crumble and be destroyed within an instant. His divine knife was also destroyed. Facing these true gods, he was helpless. Lian Huahan flew and landed on the roof of the palace in front of them. She said, "It's Celestial Venerable Hua's imprint, rather than Celestial Venerable Hua that's in the city. He ran into terrifying enemies here. As he fought them, his great Tao was imprinted here." Yun Chuxiu was astonished that there was someone in the Great Void who was able to match up to an existence like Celestial Venerable Hua. She chuckled. In that case, Celestial Venerable Mu is trapped in a hopeless situation. Since Celestial Venerable Hua isn't here, it seems that no one is able to stop all of you from killing Celestial Venerable Mu. She sighed and said softly, Celestial Venerable, I'm sorry. Even if it was me facing this situation, I would be helpless. At this moment, the sun set in the west, descending among the mountains as the sky gradually darkened. Suddenly, many lanterns lit up with intense brightness, illuminating the entire city. Waves of roars were heard from afar. Qin Mu's heart stirred slightly as he cried, I knew it! Everyone paid no attention to his words as they raised their divine weapons and executed their divine arts, preparing to kill him. Yun Chuxiu smiled. Celestial Venerable, what have you discovered? Qin Mu composed himself. I finally discovered why the masters of creation of the Great Void built such high city walls, and what the walls are defending against. Everyone was slightly stunned, and there were some who looked around their surroundings. Lian Huahun frowned slightly as she flew and landed on a sentry tower, scanning the city in all directions. The roars came from the darkness outside of the city, and they were getting nearer. Pan Chunjin, earlier you mentioned that there is no Yudu or Mingdu here. Also, we are outside the jurisdiction of Earth Count and Heaven Duke. In addition, those who die here won't return to the jurisdiction of Goddess of Heavenly Een. In that case, for people who die here, where do their souls go? Qin Mu's eyes were bright as he solemnly said, The souls of the dead naturally remain in the Great Void. Yun Chuxiu couldn't help but say, Celestial Venerable Mu, do you think that these words can save your life? Qin Mu shook his head. I'm not asking you to spare my life, I'm saving yours. It's the Great Void here. Everyone was confused. Qin Mu said coldly, This place is teeming with the consciousnesses of the masters of creation. Those who die here, they end up wandering around the Great Void. Since their grievances were unleashed, what do you think the masters of creation's consciousnesses would transform them into? In Yudu, the grievances of the dead become monsters, even producing devil gods or heavenly devils. These devil gods and heavenly devils carry with them negative emotions, plundering, killing, and committing all sorts of evil. However, Yudu is under the jurisdiction of Earth Count, which is why these devils are unable to cause much trouble. Everybody's hearts jumped. Yun Chuxiu hurriedly flew and landed on a sentry tower, and her delicate body froze as she looked around the city. As there is no Earth Count here, what's being produced would certainly be more powerful and sinister than the devil gods. They are what these masters of creation of the Great Void were guarding against. Qin Mu sighed and said, I was trying to save you. Unfortunately, all of you were persistent in taking my life. I predict that we're no longer able to escape. Pan Chunjin, Huayu, and the rest were skeptical. They each flew on top of the sentry towers. Within the darkness, they saw many gigantic, ferocious-looking figures. They couldn't help but turn pale. In the darkness outside of the city, there was an earth-shattering roar that grew louder. From the darkness, a large monster appeared. The people in the city got nervous, as the monster looked like one that belonged in their nightmares, for it was the ugliest and most ferocious thing imaginable. It looked like a man with tentacles all over him, a man with eyes all over him, a flower made out of blood and flesh, and a combination of plants and humans. It was very weird looking. Behind it came ancient gods whose bodies were humanoid and whose heads were those of beasts, like cows and birds. Following them were large evil dragons, multi-headed snakes, and giants with large tummies. Some looked like peculiar engineered creatures. These giants' arms were made out of sharp drills, while sharp blades protruded out of their bodies. They were walking siege engines. Toot toot. A ship made out of flesh and blood spewed out dense smoke. It had long arms and countless legs growing out of its side and bottom respectively. It even had plenty of men with only half a body growing out of it on its deck. It beat its drums and gongs while playing its flutes and singing. The boat of flesh and blood danced amidst the music as its front opened its bloody mouth, which was filled with steel knives that acted like teeth. It happily walked towards the city of the masters of creation. The moon appeared in the sky and showered the land with moonlight. Peculiar laughter was heard from the skies, and Qin Mu raised his head. He saw a human face on the moon, which was giving off peculiar laughter. Additionally, the moon had arms growing out of it. It retrieved a flute, which was made from the bones of masters of creation, and played a cheerful tune with it. Qinmu stopped looking at it. The night of the Great Void was like a strange dream that weirded people out with ridiculous phenomena. Whoosh! A giant creature descended from the heavens onto the city buildings. It was a large bird with humanoid faces on it and wings that were made out of bones. It crushed half of the buildings upon its landing. The large bird's faces looked at the people in the city excitedly and laughed in a funny manner. The bones making up the large bird's wings were hollow, and all of a sudden, they spewed out air and flames that filled the air with an ear-piercing whoosh. The airflow and flames lifted the bird, and it flew into the sky. The nightmarish creatures outside the city began to run loudly towards the whooshing sound. Oh my God! A female true god was trembling as she stared at the sight, asking, "What exactly is this world?" It was a world created by the Great Void's Masters of Creation. A world made out of consciousness that the Masters of Creation visualized via said consciousness. They created everything here, including civilization. However, due to invasion by an external enemy, one of the worlds was wrecked, which caused the devils in people's hearts to breed naturally in the Great Void. Although the Great Void was perfectly preserved, there was no Yudu here and hence no place for the dead to go, which led to another consequence. When there was no place for the dead to go, they could only linger in the Great Void, causing them to fuse with the consciousness of the Masters of Creation, giving birth to a new unique life form. The dead who formed these monsters in the Great Void consisted of not only dead Masters of Creation, but dead gods and devils of the celestial heavens. Boom! Another violent tremor came as the Great Void monsters smashed against the wall. The seemingly indestructible city walls of the Masters of Creation's city violently shook, and cracks began to emerge on the walls. However, the city was made out of the Masters of Creation's consciousness, which allowed it to repair itself quickly, relieving the worries of the people inside. Boom! Another impact sound came, and the solemn yet grand impact sounds came again and again. The reflective city walls couldn't repair in time, and suddenly, the southern gate collapsed, and the Great Void monsters flooded into the city. "Prepare to face the enemy!" someone shouted. At this moment, the northern gate also collapsed, followed by the eastern and western gates. The monsters ran amok in the city, crushing everything that they walked by. The invasion of thousands of Great Void monsters had the people on the high ground worried. On a sentry tower, a lady screamed and soared into the air in an attempt to flee the nightmarish city. When she flew, however, the moon with a human face screeched, and a bird whose face was made out of a human skull rushed towards her. Countless weird birds flew from the moon and covered the sky in darkness. The color of the moon also became peculiar, becoming blood red, as if it was a bleeding face. The tune that the moon was playing became unusually fast and cheerful, and even a little bit naughty. The tune reached the monsters' ears and got them extremely excited. Soon, the lady who flew into the air was torn to shreds by the birds. Blood began to drizzle from the skies before it poured. The moon bled and caused a rain of blood. The sky was like a painting dyed by fresh blood, and blood covered the skies and the ground. The weird bird came down from the skies, and the crowded group of monsters came to the position of Qinmu and the others to flood them. At that moment, grudges were left behind, as was the order to kill Celestial Venerable Mu. They had only one thought at that moment: survive. Qinmu immediately utilized the Gate of Heaven influence. However, he was left stunned because it couldn't be opened. These devils clearly came from the souls of those who died in the Great Void. Thus, the most effective magic power and divine arts to use against them were those that targeted spirits. However, Yudu and the Great Void existed in different space and time, which made the Gate of Heaven influence impossible to open. If I could open the Gate of Heaven influence, I could kill everyone and get out easily. What a pity that I can't. He utilized his Yudu divine art, merging his vital chi and consciousness to visualize a white banner that he swung towards a monster resembling an ancient god that was rushing him. I'm not my brother. Nevertheless, there are less than 5 Yudu divine arts that are better than mine. The soul in that monster flew out and landed in the white banner. The banner, which was originally empty, now had a man inside. That man was muddle-headed and had a twisted face, and he struggled to fly out of the banner. The banner was very thin, for it was made out of vital chi and consciousness, but it seemed like it hid a lot of space within. That man's twisted face came out of the white banner and warped the space on the top of the banner. Qin Mu smashed the white banner on the ground and let out a low groan, saying, "Wherever I am, Yudu exists." Boom! His vital qi exploded, and rolling Yudu devil qi flooded out, instantly sweeping the land within a 7-hectare radius. It shaped and formed a dark world. Within his spirit embryo divine treasure, his primordial spirit embryo lifted his leg, and immediately, the taiji beneath its leg churned. The heavens above and the earth below swirled, and the earth was shaped into a Yudu world. Qin Mu's body fused with the primordial spirit, and as he shook his body, it was shaped into the form of a 3-eyed earth count. His body inflated itself, and it became around 100 yards tall like a hill, just as large as the monsters. He held a flaming whip and flicked it to strangle an incoming monster's neck. He shook it hard, and the soul within that monster's body flew out and was captured by the whip. He retracted his whip and coiled it around the white banner, giving it another twisted soul to store. The eye in the heart of Qin Mu's brows opened, and its fiery glow flew into the front like a pillar. The monster on the receiving end had its soul dispersed. Behind him, a monster rushed him. He lifted a hoof and kicked that monster's head. Beneath its leg, Yudu devil fire burnt the monster's soul into ashes. Another monster rushed towards his back, and it ended up having its throat locked by Qin Mu's tail, which coiled around it, lifting it into the air before smashing it into the ground. That monster was smashed to the point of dizziness. As it was about to stand up, another one of Qin Mu's bull hooves fell on its head. That monster's head exploded with a pack. That weird bird in the sky dove towards the ground, brandishing its claws. However, all it saw was the 2 earth count horns go ablaze, morphing into 9 Ben's yellow springs that locked it in place, burning it and causing it to scream in agony. A monster smashed into his body suddenly, and a cracking sound came from Qin Mu's chest. His bones were fractured, and he rolled on the floor until he hit a palace, breaking through it before hitting another palace of the Masters of Creation, destroying a giant pillar before stopping. His body of earth count was broken, and he immediately returned to his real self. He then immediately utilized the Anusrava creation mysterious scripture to heal himself. In front of him, a loud rumbling filled the air. The monster that had knocked into him had crushed 2 halls and was chasing after his figure. Seeing that it was going to smash into him again, Qin Mu seemingly melted and stuck himself to the ground, morphing into a black shadow and swimming away quickly. That monster was stunned and immediately chased after his shadow crazily. Luo Wushuang was using his vital qi as a knife to cleave the monsters. However, he wasn't focused on it as he looked around. He saw that everyone was in danger as casualties mounted. Even true gods who were disciples of celestial venerables and had comprehended small celestial heavens techniques couldn't resist such attacks. Another scream came as another true god was ripped to shreds. After that god died, his soul drifted about, and in the next moment blood and flesh coalesced around it, morphing it into a great void monster that was unable to recognize its friends and family. It was hungry for death. In addition, Luo Wushuang discovered that even if the monsters were shattered and incinerated into ashes, their corporeal bodies would recover, and the killing would continue. It was only when these monsters had their souls dispersed that they were truly killed. It was difficult to disperse all of the souls of such a dense cluster of monsters. There were too many of them and too many of their attacks for opportunities to disperse their souls to appear. It seems like I have to gamble with my life by pulling out the core of the primordial tree to disperse their souls, even if it means that my celestial palace will be destroyed. Luo Wushuang clenched his teeth and was about to pull out the core of the primordial tree when suddenly, a black shadow swam to the ground beneath his feet. That shadow stood up and morphed into Qin Mu, who plucked out the core of the primordial tree from the heart of his brows. He then shook it against the wind, and it inflated. A rod of moderate length appeared in Qin Mu's hands, and Qin Mu blew on it and chanted, "Grow bigger." The rod fell onto the ground and expanded immediately. Boom! Luo Wushuang heard a ringing that was as loud as thunder, and he was pulled into the air by Qin Mu. When he looked down, he saw a terrifying scene. The core of the primordial tree morphed into a large and thick rod that stretched for 800 miles from each end of the Masters of Creation city. That rod lay in the city's center and had a diameter of at least 1,000 yards, pulverizing countless monsters. On top of that, any buildings the rod went through were leveled. The both of them went down and were surrounded by countless weird birds flapping their wings above. Their hollow bones spewed out flames at an extremely fast rate. Qin Mu brought Luo Wuxuang down with him, and the core became smaller and smaller until it was the size of a wooden needle in Qin Mu's hand. Qin Mu placed the core of the primordial tree in the heart of Luo Wuxuang's brows. It instantly penetrated Luo Wuxuang's celestial palace and continued inducting medicinal power to heal his celestial palace. Luo Wuxuang groaned. Previously, he felt that it wasn't scary to have the core of the primordial tree in the heart of his brows. Now, after seeing its capabilities, he became scared and he said, "Aren't you worried about being careful? You might crush my celestial palace." The two men followed the path created by the core of the primordial tree in an attempt to break out of the city. However, the monsters who just got pulverized reformed and crawled up again. In addition, the palaces, halls, and buildings pulverized by the primordial tree's core also regenerated rapidly, blocking them. Qin Mu frowned and retrieved the core from the heart of Luo Wuxuang's brows again. Luo Wuxuang was numb by this point and leaped with him. Rumble! The core showed its capabilities again, once more crushing the monsters who crawled up. The two of them landed, and Qin Mu put the core in the heart of Luo Wuxuang's brows again. Luo Wuxuang had already submitted to fate. He thought, as long as I can escape. Yet, those monsters recovered quickly, and the destroyed buildings returned to their former glory. The path ahead was blocked again as more monsters flooded in, making the chance at escape very low. Qin Mu clenched his teeth and laughed out of anger. This is the first time that I've met a city I can't destroy. Luo Wuxuang was visibly perplexed. Suddenly a melody came. That boat of flesh and blood rushed forward with the countless legs that it had. The many half-bodied men on it sang and played their instruments, from small ones like flutes to large ones like trumpets. All sorts of happy and cheerful melodies were played. The boat danced while its head's mouth opened and swallowed countless monsters. It chewed them and ate them vigorously. They were clearly crispy. Monsters who couldn't dodge in time were knocked into the air, or stepped on to the point of becoming mud. Behind the boat, there was a large tube made out of a large intestine that was tilted towards the heavens. Anything the ship couldn't digest was made into dense rolling smoke that was spewed out, which made a long toot-toot cry. The ship rushed towards Qin Mu and Luo Wuxuang. They felt hopeless. This ship was likely an amalgamation of countless souls, which made it peculiar. Given their strength at that moment, they couldn't defend themselves at all. All they could do was be eaten by the ship and passed out as dense smoke. Qin Mu clenched his teeth and glanced at Celestial Venerable, whose imprint not far away. He suddenly made up his mind. As Luo Wuxuang was using vital qi to create divine knives to kill the approaching monster, he glanced at Qin Mu's gaze and was shocked. He hurriedly asked, "Overlord Body Qin, what are you going to do?" Qin Mu's vital qi flew out of him and morphed into a sharp sword that went straight for the injured portion of Celestial Venerable, whose imprint. Luo Wuxuang felt a chill down his spine and shouted, "People in the city, leave now!" Qin Mu plucked out the core of the primordial tree from the heart of Luo Wuxuang's brows and stuck it on the ground. It became very thick. Qin Mu pulled Luo Wuxuang, telling him to go prone. After you go prone, use all of your vital qi to protect your corporeal body and beware of being crushed. The two men went prone on the primordial tree core. As for that weird ship, it had already rushed directly in front of them. At that very moment, the flying sword created from Qin Mu's vital qi had already stabbed the injured point on Celestial Venerable, whose imprint. "Bigger, bigger, bigger!" Qin Mu hollered. "Longer, longer, longer!" Luo Wuxuang was using all of his vital qi to protect his corporeal body. As the vital qi filled his entire body, he snuck a glance and saw Celestial Venerable, whose imprint become an unbelievably bright light. It filled his vision with bright light before plunging him into darkness. Almost within the same moment, the primordial tree core expanded greatly, lifting them up into the clouds. It grew hundreds of miles tall in an instant. The strong inertia kept them pressed on the top of the core. Luo Wuxuang could only feel his divine blood gathering under his skin. His eyes were almost pressed into his head, and his heart was almost squashed, stuck on the ribs on his back. His muscles were like paper perfectly pasted on the core. At the same time, he heard bones fracturing and skin exploding beside him. "It's over, Overlord Body Qin." He was filled with sorrow. If even the corporeal body of a numinous sky-strong practitioner like him couldn't take the hit, how could Qin Mu? The bone-fracturing sound originated from the moment Qin Mu's bones were shattered by the pressure, while the skin-exploding sound originated from the moment Qin Mu's blood flowed into the skin pasted on the core. His skin couldn't take such strong pressure and impact force, and his whole body must have exploded, causing blood to cover the core. Not only that, his entire corporeal body would be shattered completely, including his brain matter. Overlord Body Qin, you severed an arm of mine, and I held a grudge for 40,000 years, yet you saved my life thrice. Luo Wushuang's mind was groggy. Unfortunately, I can't pay you back. I wanted to fight you here and let you see my knife skills. The core of the primordial tree was still expanding, standing straight in the Masters of Creation city. It was thousands of miles tall as it grew straight towards that bloody moon in the sky. Soon the core was 10,000 miles long and still growing ever taller and longer. It managed to stick out of the great void's atmosphere. This primordial tree core roared into the sky and reached the bloody moon, roaring past it. That blood moon was a giant ball of flesh, likely a giant ball of brain matter. Its weird eyes stared in shock at the pillar whizzing past it. It should be the brain of a near-omnipotent master of creation of the great void. He was likely killed with his brain chopped off. Thus, his brain floated in the great void sky, forming the weird world's moon. Every night, it would play a cheerful and pleasing flute tune. It forgot to play its flute as flames engulfed everything below. Beneath it, celestial venerable Hua's imprint exploded, and in a moment, the energy contained within it swept through the city and destroyed everything. At the same time, that drop of celestial venerable Hua's divine blood and the sword energy within it was triggered, and a loud and bright fireball enveloped the entire city, expanding outwards and engulfing thousands of miles in an instant. It soon expanded to a radius of 10,000 miles. Everywhere it went, space was broken apart as mountains turned into ashes, rivers evaporated, and the oceans became nothing. Finally, the wave of divine art beneath settled down, and the primordial tree core stopped growing. The vision of Luo Wushuang also became clearer as his blood returned. Although he suffered heavy injuries, he was still alive. He sat up. The primordial tree core had sent him into outer space, where nothing else but him and this large and thick pillar existed. Luo Wushuang was silent as he looked at the primordial tree core, which was akin to a landmass. He was suddenly stunned. He saw many blood droplets seep out of the primordial tree core before automatically coming together to form a heart in outer space. Many blood vessels grew out of the heart, extending in all directions. Then, smaller vessels grew from it, giving it the form of a human body. He then saw a brain growing, followed by vital organs in the skeletal system. Not long after, the human body grew skin and hair to form a naked man that looked exactly like Qin Mu. Qin Mu lifted his hands, and the shirt lying on the primordial tree core flew to him. He shook off the broken bones on it before wearing it. Mother Earth really was great to me. Qin Mu revealed his happiness, while Luo Wushuang remained silent. She was so affectionate that she was even willing to give me such a precious artifact. I kept thinking about how to acquire more of such babies like this from her. I really am inept, Qin Mu said gratefully. Luo Wushuang was silent as he thought. This man still looks so disgusting after living through this. He hasn't changed one bit. I blamed him wrongly. Clattering sounds came from the air. It was the devil in Luo Wushuang's heart reappearing. Qin Mu glanced at him, and the primordial tree core shrank, returning to the land. The core of the primordial tree shrank until it was beneath that bloody moon before stopping. Luo Wushuang was perplexed as Qin Mu flew from the core. Luo Wushuang wanted to know what he was up to, so he followed him. Bigger! Qin Mu hollered once, and the core rapidly expanded, sending the moon into outer space. That bloody moon gave off a mournful scream as it was knocked far away. The core shrank again, returning to the atmosphere with the two men standing on top of it. The core shrank to the point of being smaller than the city, which was now a visibly flat white land with a crater in the center. Qin Mu picked up the core of the primordial tree and smelled a burnt smell, so he hurriedly examined the rod. A part of it was charred, and many years' worth of growth rings had fallen off. Additionally, there were many sword marks on the core. Some parts of it were even chopped in half, likely harmed by the sword energy. Qin Mu was visibly hurt. I'm not sure whether Mother Earth will be willing to give me another rod like this. He looked into the distance and saw mountain ranges rising and regenerating. One abnormally majestic mountain after another rose from the ground quickly, and the range was about to reach the place they were at. Even a celestial venerable's divine art can't destroy this place completely? Qin Mu naturally was dumbstruck. Luo Wushuang hastily said, Overlord Body Qin, if we wait for the city to recover, we won't be able to escape. The two men speedily flew out of the city's ruin towards the east, and a voice said, I just saw a magnificent city towards the east. If I go there, I might find clues left behind by Big Brother Wei Suifeng. Not long after they left, the land rose again, and the destroyed city rose up as if it were a mirage. The monsters rebuilt themselves as well. It was as if nothing had changed. All that changed was that Celestial Venerable was imprint, and that drop of Celestial Venerable divine blood were now gone, while the others in the city died in that explosion. Qin Mu looked back at that magnificent and unique city. He was visibly stunned as he thought, what did the Great Void's masters of creation experience? Where did they go? Why don't we see them at all? Luo Wushuang was thinking about something else entirely. Celestial Empress and Mistress Yuanmu, are they still alive? The Celestial Heavens and the Great Void are two different worlds. If their clones died here, their true bodies wouldn't know what happened. If that's the case, I don't need to back out of the Celestial Heavens. Qin Mu glanced at him and plainly asked, Divine Knife Luo, how do you know that Celestial Venerable Su who entered the Great Void isn't one of them? Luo Wushuang was stunned and felt a chill. He forced a smile and said, Impossible, how could such a coincidence exist? Although he said that, he was still unnerved. Which two Celestial Venerables did Celestial Empress and Mistress Yuanmu reincarnate into? The sun rose and the Great Void's monsters receded like the tide, disappearing into the forest. Suddenly, two pitch-black whirlpools appeared, and in the center of them was something akin to an abyss. A flower grew out of the abyss, and the fresh flower bud bloomed while rotating. Yun Chuxiu was lying on the stamen, looking like a sleeping beauty who had just woken up as she yawned lazily. In the other abyss, another flower grew out, and after it opened, Lian Huahun stared at Yun Chuxiu while sitting upright. Wretch! She quickly stood up and was surrounded by a killer's aura. She coldly said, It's time to settle our grudge. Today you will die here. Yun Chuxiu giggled. You're always so uptight and lacking in fun. No wonder brother-in-law would come into my embrace. You're suited to be Celestial Empress, while I'm suited to be a little lover. Lian Huahun was furious and was about to act, but Yun Chuxiu hastily asked, Do you know where your corporeal body is? Lian Huahun stopped and coldly said, You took my corporeal body and were good friends with Celestial Venerable Ling, so my corporeal body is surely on Celestial Venerable Ling's ghost ship. Yun Chuxiu adjusted her clothes and giggled. Do you want it back? Lian Huahun's gaze fell onto her face and checked her sincerity. Yun Chuxiu smiled. Emperor of Endless Clouds Wei Suifeng has been sent to the ghost ship already. You should understand who is attempting to find your corporeal body. Mother Earth died but wasn't yet vanquished. Do you think brother-in-law died so easily? Lian Huahun's delicate body shook as she clenched her teeth and asked, What does that despicable man want with my corporeal body? Yun Chuxiu giggled back. Of course, it's not to make love to you. You and I came from the same source. Neither of us can deal with him single-handedly, so why don't you and I work together? I will help you take back your corporeal body, and you will take back mine. How does that sound? Lian Huahun thought for a while before probing. Where's your corporeal body? Yun Chuxiu smiled and said, Naturally, it's in the hands of that Fo Qin Mu.